Chapter 1. One Day Special. Today's ramen comes with free scrolls. It had not been a good day for Naruto. As the blonde genin took his usual seat at Ichiraku's, he decided to revise the statement and surmised that it had actually been more like a giant crap fest. He had made it through to the next stage of the Chunin exams and had a month to train. His sensei Kakashi had disappeared somewhere to train the damned Uchiha, and Irika had too many classes and too much paperwork to give him any time. He had thanked the heavens when Ebisu-san had offered his services, but he had disappeared after Pervy Sage had knocked him out. This brought Naruto's thoughts to the present and his newest betrayal. Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha, though all Naruto had seen was an absurdly strong, perverted old man. With his ninja centerfold, he had managed to get the Pervy Sage to agree to train him. He had done something to his stomach that had fixed the ache he had been feeling since his fight with the snake guy in the Forest of Death, and had taught him to walk on water, but just when they were talking about toad summoning, Sakura had shown up and Jiraiya had ended his role as Naruto's mentor and walked away whispering into the Pinkette's ear about training her to become the first female Hokage. "It's just not fair, no," the blonde genin screamed, slamming his fists on the counter. "Calm down, brat. You are disturbing my meal." Naruto turned to his neighbor, an old man with bandages across half his face, a tuft of hair sticking out at the top and an X-shaped scar on his chin. He looked as old as Grandpa Hokage. Naruto bowed his head in apology. "Sorry, Grandpa. It's just not fair, The old man shook his head while he ate some more ramen. "No, I don't know, but perhaps you want to talk about it? I'm Shimura Danzo. What is yours?" Naruto ordered some ramen for himself and had a mouthful before he said anything else. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Orange Genin of Konohagakure. And I'm probably going to stay that, I thought when Irika-sensei acknowledged me as a ninja of Konoha and my joining Team 7 meant I was finally going to be a ninja who protects Konoha and serve my village and have friends. Comrades I could count on, I thought I would get real training and become strong so I can achieve my dream of becoming the next Hokage, the best ninja of the whole village. I was going to the greatest Hokage, the greatest defender of the village, so everyone would finally respect me and see me as a ninja who loved his village and not as a demon. Instead, I've been reminded how gullible I can be. Kakashi-sensei, who gave this big speech about teamwork, has run off with his precious Uchiha to train him. Uchiha is getting further and further ahead of me, and just when I think I might have found someone else to train me, Sakura-chan steals him because he's a pervert and she's not a boy." Naruto finished his bowl and rested his head on the table. "How can I get strong enough to protect my village when no one will give me a chance, The leader of Root was at a loss. The man who lead Konoha's even blacker Black Ops had decided to treat himself to his secret passion for Ichiraku ramen and had come face to face with Konoha's Jinchukiri. He had been planning to take the power of the Kyuubi for himself. He'd laced his left arm with Sharingan eyes and injected himself with the first Hokage's blood for that very purpose, and yet he now found himself losing the desire to do such a thing. The Jinchu. Naruto's words struck a chord in him. As a child, he had always felt like he was always trying to catch up to Saru, the Sandaime Hokage. He loved Konoha too, and he'd always wanted to be Hokage himself, to be the great protector of the village. Years before, he had attempted to forge an alliance with Hanzo the Salamander to that end, but that plan had fallen apart. In fact, he now felt ashamed of the planned coup, to his own surprise. Danzo had long thought the same as many, that Uzumaki Naruto was the nine-tailed demon fox in human form, a menace. Now he saw his own reflection, a little boy struggling for recognition and chasing the shadow of his teammate. He had known his father and grandfather had died to protect the village, but though he knew Naruto's parents had given their lives to protect the village, the Orange Genin of Konoha did not. He knew nothing of his heritage. He agreed with Sarutobi that the name Namikaze would have drawn the Yondaime Hokage's attention, but the Uzumaki name had an allure too. They had once had their own village and specialized in fuinjutsus, seals. He had researched them a great deal when he had been developing his own seals and had a number of their scrolls with him on this day. "What you have told me today gives me pause for thought, young Uzumaki. I will admit that I already knew who you were before you introduced yourself, and I have borne you an ill will for as long as you have lived. But what you have said today has given me a new perspective. You speak of your love for Konoha and your desire to be her #1 protector. I share that dream, but I fear my team has passed. So I think I shall help you." He reached into his bag and made a mental note to have the root files on Uzumaki Naruto moved from the enemies section and into the allies section. The Uzumaki were a very prestigious family of ninja. They had close familial ties to the Senju family, who founded Konoha, and they themselves had their own village. These scrolls contain their history and their jutsus. They are your birthright. I'm afraid I can't afford the time to train you myself, but I am sure that you can overcome this obstacle. In fact, I shall put a small sum on you to win in your match, so don't let me down. With that, the old man that had just overturned the orange genin's life in a matter of minutes stood and walked away. Naruto ran home clutching the Uzumaki scrolls tightly to his chest. He literally could not believe his own luck. A man he had never met before had given him a way of possibly winning. He locked the door and pulled his training schedule to start rearranging his training. He'd never done any work on Fuinjutsu, but he had high hopes considering they were part of his very bloodline. Some of the designs made him think of his own seal, and Uzumaki must have designed it or had a hand in its creation. He also realized the crest that decorated his coat and the flak jackets of every Chunin and Jonin in Konoha was in fact the Uzumaki clan symbol. When Grandpa Scary-chin had said the Uzumakis and the Senjus were close, he meant it. In the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen was working his way through paperwork when there came a knock at the door. Who could be calling at this hour? The Sandaime Hokage mused as he went to the door. Hello, Saru, old friend. May I come in? With a great deal of sputtering, Hiruzen led his old friend and rival into the office they had both dreamed of working in as children. As he lit his pipe, Hiruzen turned to the seated Danzo and asked him why he had come. I had an interesting conversation with Uzumaki Naruto. Hiruzen tensed at this. He knew his old friend had some extremist views and an interest in Naruto could prove hazardous. I've done some terrible things, Saru. Hiruzen stifled a gasp of shock. I've always believed that we ninja should hide in the shadows, and I have been vicious in dealing with any perceived enemy of Konoha. But that boy, I saw him as a possible tool, but when he started to tell me what he has experienced, I felt my heart go out to him. I have felt some of what he had felt, though not as severely. He wants to be the Hokage, the #1 defender of Konoha. After all he has had to endure, he still wants to protect Konoha. But he is ignored by his teachers and he feels he is falling further and further behind his peers. I can't help but sympathize. Hiruzen smiled. You're finally starting to see my side after all these years? It's about time, old friend. Meanwhile, Naruto was poring over the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu scrolls till he stopped at one that caught his eye. In Seal. The ninja stores chakra in a focus point and can use it in the event of chakra exhaustion or for certain derived jutsu. See Creation Rebirth, invented by Senju Tsunade. Tsunade? Naruto took a moment to try and remember where he'd heard that name when it came to him. Tenten. Lee's teammate had given a 3-hour speech about her. The speech was supposed to make point about how Kunoichi could be just as good as Shinobi, if not better. It had instead convinced everyone that Tenten's interests lay in the fairer sex. Senju Tsunade was the granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage, trained by the Sandaime Hokage and the primary force for the inclusion of Irionin into ninja teams. One of the legendary Sannin, like Pervy Sage. Naruto made a note to visit Tenten to get some more information on Tsunade and set to work on crafting the In Seal. He thought back to one of his few conversations with Pervy Sage. Another chakra, a different color from his normal chakra that he could use. If he could make this Fuinjutsu work, he could channel the red chakra there and use it whenever instead of just when he's angry. I gave him the Uzumaki scrolls. Hiruzen dropped his pipe. You had them then? I always wondered where they had gone. Grandma Mito always said you were popping over for Fuinjutsu lessons. Danzo sipped at his tea and gave his old friend and longtime rival a long stare. If he's going to live as an Uzumaki and not a Namikaze, then he may as well have access to all of his Uzumaki heritage. It had been Hiruzen's decision that the boy be given his mother's family name, believing his mother's name might attract less attention than his father's. It was very kind of you to give him that, but I have looked over the matchups for the next part of the Chunin exams, and I'm not sure Fuinjutsu will help him much against a Juken specialist. Danzo began to laugh, so much so he had to put his cup down. Hiruzen was in two minds about what he was seeing. On the one hand, he had never seen Danzo laugh with so much glee in decades. On the other hand, Danzo clearly knew something about the Uzumaki clan that he didn't, and that bothered him. Hiruzen relit his pipe and continued to enjoy the company of an old friend. Naruto found himself in a dark corridor. The floor was flooded and the place looked like nobody had set foot there in years. He heard a rumble and moved towards the sound. He came to room with a huge gate and a large seal was stuck to it. "Hello? Is anyone here? I'm looking for a fox. He's supposed to be really big and has 9 tails." The room shook with a roar and a large pair of red eyes appeared on the other side of the gate. "Who dares disturb me?" Naruto fell to the ground with a splash. Okay. Perhaps taunting the demon that nearly destroyed Konoha was not the best plan, but it's done, and at least now he knew where he was. He cleared his throat and stepped up to the gate. "Hi there. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm your Jinchukuri, you know. Listen, your chakra leaks out a bit, and it's been really hand at times, but I would really like to be able to turn it on and off, so I've set up a yin seal to store the chakra for when I need it. Now, since you're living in me, you're more like a tenant, so let's make that red chakra your rent, and you just send it there, you know." The fox hit the gate hard. "Insolent brat. Do you know who I am?" The fox snarled with contempt at his newest Jinchukuri. "No, I don't. So what's your name?" "I am." "What did you just say?" Chapter 2. High Emotion. A new teacher explodes onto the scene. In the village of the Hidden Leaf, a Chunin proctor was dead and the members of ANBU, elite ninja in the service of the Hokage, were on high alert. Orochimaru was nearby and Yakushi Kabuto had been revealed as a traitor. Even more distressing was the news of the alliance between Orochimaru and the Kazekage of Sunagakure. Hiruzen had not revealed this bit of information to the elders because to do so would compromise his newfound source. The Sandaime Hokage walked to the window of his office and whispered, "Thank you, Naruto." Tenten winced in pain as she made her way home from helping her teammates' training. After 2 weeks of helping Neji perfect his Hakusho Kaiten, she was feeling bruises everywhere. In truth, she was holding back in the exercises, not out of a hesitance for injuring a teammate but for her own sake. In her match with Sabaku no Temari, the Sand sibling had driven her folded fan into the Konoha Kunoichi's back. She had walked home after the match, but her back had continued to trouble her. She pulled out her Iryonin scroll and wondered if she should try using Shosen Jutsu again, but shook her head. She had long given up trying to be a legendary Iryonin like her idol Tsunade-sama. When she had tried to perform Shosen Jutsu, the fish had quickly died. She considered what had happened to her team. She had been defeated humiliatingly quickly. Lee was in hospital and would probably never return to being a ninja, and Neji had revealed a darkness in his soul that she hadn't seen before. To think he could inflict so much damage on his own cousin. Suddenly Tenten's back exploded into spasms of pain. She fell to her knees and saw the floor getting closer when she felt someone catch her. She felt her body being lifted up. She looked up to see who her Samaritan, but soon didn't need to see a face. There was only one person in Konoha that wore that much orange. Naruto. The orange genin of Konoha had been on his way to visit Tenten and saw her collapse. She said his name and then passed out. Holding her in his arms, he made his way to her family's shop. Tenten's family didn't use their surname except for trade. They were Konoha's specialty blacksmiths, when ninja wanted to pay the higher price for better quality weapons. Her father, Katanakaji, had begun creating weapons and tools with built-in Fuinjutsu. His best-selling piece were nunchaku with Fujitsu Kyuin built in. He got through the door and made his way to the stairs and what he guessed would be her room until Tenten. The voice boomed and a large man sporting a mullet with spiked hair and holding a hammer burst through a wall to stand before Naruto. "What have you done to my daughter, you ruffian?" Katanakaji suddenly ripped his shirt off to reveal a heavily muscled torso. "If you think you can attack my darling daughter and then sneak like an eel into my place of business and into my abode, then I shall have to show you why I am called the everlasting Titan of the Hidden Leaf." With that, he struck a pose that made his muscles bulge and shine in the light. "He's kind of like Caterpillar Brows and Bushy Brows Sensei." "No, sir. Your daughter collapsed, so I brought her here, you know? And I have been studying Iryo Ninjutsu, so I thought I could find out what was wrong, you know, and treat it before you knew, so she didn't get in trouble for overdoing it with her training." Naruto kept his eyes closed, waiting for his head to be knocked off. When that didn't happen, he opened his eyes. The everlasting Titan of the Hidden Life was crying, his hammer lying forgotten on the floor. That there is such a true gentleman in your generation who would do such a thing for a fellow ninja. Orange-garbed Iryn in training. I am deeply moved. Katanakaji patted Naruto's shoulder with such force that he wondered if he'd need Shosen Jutsu for himself. Tenten's room is thought orange gentleman. Might I know your name as you know mine? Naruto made his way up. My name's Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage. When Tenten woke, she could tell it was night time. She took a moment to assess her surroundings. She was in her room and she was on her front with her face on its side to allow her to breathe. And her top had been removed. She immediately surged up to cover herself and froze. There was no shooting pain or spasms in her back. In fact, it was better than ever. She checked herself over and all of the bruises from training with Neji were healed too. She refastened her top and turned to see Naruto enter her room with a tray of food and a bundle of scrolls. What is the meaning of this? Naruto looked at her with a vacant look. Your dad made dinner and I brought some up in case you'd woken up. Your dad handed me these scrolls to go over if what I was doing wasn't enough. They're actually what I had come to see you about, so it's kind of funny if you don't count the part where you passed out, you know. Tenten took a moment to look at her orange Samaritan. He was different. He wasn't wearing his jacket and he had taken off his Hittite. She could see he had a gem on his forehead, and through the mesh shirt she could see what appeared to be a tattoo on his belly that was fading. The team guy Kunoichi considered herself an authority on Fuinjutsu. It was her specialty in her team, so she knew that she was seeing. The one on Naruto's belly was a mystery, but she could recognize the gem on the orange genin's forehead was clearly the Ein seal that Tsunade Heim herself had used. These details were curious enough, but what he had said raised further questions. For her father to have given Naruto her Iryo Ninjutsu scrolls, it would mean that Naruto was the reason her back was fine and her injuries had healed. It didn't gel in her head. When she had seen Naruto in combat, he had been clumsy and often resorted to Kagebunshin no Jutsu and pranks. Furthermore, to have done such a good job, he would need to have an incredibly high level of chakra control. Naruto, what are you doing with Tsunade Heim's seal on your head? Why do you want to look at my scrolls, and when did you learn Iryo Ninjutsu? Naruto pulled his jacket back on and sat next to Tenten while she took the dinner out of his hands. The Ein seal is actually an Uzumaki clan Fuinjutsu. Tsunade's grandma used the same Fuinjutsu and her name was Uzumaki Mito. I got the Uzumaki scrolls a little over a week ago, and when I saw the name of Tsunade I thought of your speech, so I thought you'd probably have more information on her. I've been practicing Iryo Ninjutsu about the same amount of time. The Uzumaki clan specialized in Fuinjutsu, but they also had a bunch of Iryo Ninjutsu exercises. Tenten felt a cold sweat on the back of her neck. Iryo Ninjutsu required perfect chakra control, and the dead last genin had apparently mastered Shosen Jutsu. Naruto, you know, if you're really wanting to going up against Neji, you can't just have Fuinjutsu and Iryo Ninjutsu. Neji is a Juken genius, and now that he's mastered, I can't tell you. Can't Hataki-san teach you some more taijutsu or some long-range ninjutsu? Naruto chuckled, more to himself than at Tenten. It's alright, Tenchan. This Ein seal is handier than you might realize, and Kakashi-sensei is too busy with Uchiha. The door burst from its hinges and Katanakaji entered looking furious, and holding 2 bowls of ice cream. Naruto Keiyun, I came to bring you and Tentenheim some delicious dessert, but your words have stolen the joy that I had intended to serve you with. How can your sensei not want to see such a gentleman ninja succeed? Naruto took a moment to recover from the shock of the intrusion, then simply sighed and shrugged his shoulders. It is decided then. I shall teach you taijutsu and help you train as reward for your skills in helping my beloved daughter. Tenten was a deep red by this point. Naruto, on the other hand, felt no such embarrassment. He leapt into the air and hugged his new sensei. Thank you, Mullet Sensei. I look forward to any task you set for me. Tenten held her breath, expecting an explosion at the nickname. Instead, her father pulled the boy into a tighter hug. To think that a teacher and student can become close enough to bestow nicknames after such a short time. It is so moving. Wah-ag. The hug and the crying and laughing continued till they managed to collect themselves. Naruto, I must give you a nickname too. As you have mastered techniques of the legendary Sannin Tsunade, the Slug Princess, I shall call you Slug Prince. Come here tomorrow at dawn and we shall begin your training. Tentenheim, after I have cleaned the dishes I shall come up to say good night. Then your friend needs to go home, okay? Tenten nodded and Katanakaji left. Tenten turned to Naruto. How do you do that? Naruto looked at the Kunoichi with a confused look. Do what? Tenten sighed, of course. She noticed some messy stitching on his jacket and trousers. Some of them looked fresh. Naruto, are you having money trouble? Naruto sputtered at this. Was it really that obvious? Then how come nobody else had? It's nothing new, you know. I got basic living expenses while I was at the academy, and I get some from missions. According to the Uzumaki scrolls, I think I might have an inheritance, but the accounts are apparently at a post station near to the village, but we can't leave unless we're in our team or are at least Chunin. I tried looking for Kakashi-sensei, and I left a message like a week ago, but I've not heard from him. And if I even try asking pervy sage Jiraiya, then Sakura tells me to back off of her sensei. Tenten fumed. Basic living expenses or not, she knew for a fact that missions paid well enough to buy decent clothes to replace damaged ones. It meant that someone on Team 7 was helping themselves to Naruto's cut, and the orange genin was too naive to realize. She decided she had to help him out. Naruto, if you're finding Iryo Ninjutsu so interesting, have you thought of getting some work at the medical center? I used to work there between missions when I first joined Team Guy, and I could probably get you an interview. Naruto smiled and nodded in gratitude, then got a serious look. Tenchan, why did you switch from Iryo Ninjutsu to Fuinjutsu? You seemed really into becoming the next Tsunade. It was Tenten's turn to look serious. It turns out I have no real talent for Iryo Ninjutsu. I have plenty of chakra reserves and stamina, but I just don't have that level of accuracy like I do with weapons. But that's fine. Even if I can't perform Iryo Ninjutsu, I know I can still be a splendid kunoichi like Tsunadeheim. Naruto started laughing. Tenten looked confused, so Naruto explained. Tenten. Just then you sounded like caterpillar brows. Tenten blushed but joined in. When they finished, they both thought about Lee's condition. Naruto got up and turned to the kunoichi. Tenten, I'm going to work my hardest at my Iryo Ninjutsu and find a way to help Lee recover. I promise. He smiled and gave her a thumb up. Tenten blushed. The nice guy pose was used by Lee and Guy-sensei when they made an unbreakable vow. She realized that Naruto had every intention of making this promise happen, and she actually believed him. Thank you, Naruto. But can I ask one more favor of you? Naruto nodded. I know that with Lee in hospital, it would seem that he's the only one of our team in trouble, but I must confess I am more worried about Neji. What he did to Hinata was so brutal and angry, like nothing I had seen before. I fear he has started on a dark path of hatred, and I don't think I can get him off of it. Can you try and help him? Naruto looked at her with a serious face. I promised to beat him, now I'll beat some sense into him too. It must have something to do with the Hyuga clan. What do you know about him? Tenten considered his question. Not much, he doesn't really like to talk about himself. I know his father died around 10 years ago, and he's a member of the branch house, the protectors of the main house. Hinata is his paternal cousin. Their fathers were twins. Neji's father was the younger of them, which is why he's in the branch house. Aside from that, I can't think of anything else. Do you want to head to the medical center tomorrow after Dad's training session? Naruto nodded and made his way to the door. Naruto, will you do it? Will you save Neji? Naruto opened the door and gave her the nice guy pose again. Count on it, Tenchan. You can tell Fuzzy Brows Sensei that I promised to help Team Guy. Outside, Naruto made his way home and considered the direction his day had gone. He had successfully performed Shosen Jutsu on another person and obtained new Iryo Ninjutsu scrolls that were connected to a legendary Sannin. He had gained a new friend, and with it came the possibility of a paying job and some proper taijutsu training. He had also promised to restore Team Guy. He wondered if he should have brought up what he had discovered during his research, maybe, but he decided he wasn't going to use the information unless it was absolutely necessary. He cleared his throat and stepped up to the gate. Hi there. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm your Jinchukuri, you know. Listen, your chakra leaks out a bit, and it's been really hand at times, but I would really like to be able to turn it on and off, so I've set up a yin seal to store the chakra for when I need it. Now, since you're living in me, you're more like a tenant, so let's make that red chakra your rent, and you just send it there, you know. The fox hit the gate hard. Insolent brat. Do you know who I am? The fox snarled with contempt at his newest Jinchukuri. No, I don't. So what's your name? I am. What did you just say? Naruto moved closer to the cage. I asked you your name. You know mine, and if we're gonna work together, I should know my comrade's name. Kyubi snorted. Comrades with a brat like you? Besides, what makes you think I'd have a name? The words of Uchiha Madara circled in his mind. You are just a mass of chakra to be used by strong ninja like me. Everyone should have a name. How can we acknowledge each other if we don't know each other's names? I can't very well say thank you Fox or thank you Ninetails, you know. The demon fox, known to many as QB, wasn't sure he could control himself at this point. He began to growl. You seem to be angry a lot, you know? Maybe if we could be friends, you wouldn't have to be so angry all the time, you know. The fox collected himself and tried to sound as tough as possible. How about this, brat? I'll send chakra to your new seal and you can do whatever you like with it. If I am impressed, then I will give you my name. Naruto grinned. Deal. Chapter 3. Everything's new. New teacher, new job and new training. To find what affinity someone has, pieces of paper made from a special type of tree that are grown and fed with chakra are used that react to even the slightest hint of chakra in any of a number of ways depending on the nature latent in the chakra. A fire affinity will ignite the paper and turn it to ash. A wind affinity will split the paper in two. A lightning affinity will wrinkle the paper. An earth affinity will cause the paper to turn to dirt and crumble away. Finally, those with a water affinity will make the paper wet or damp. Copy Ninja Kakashi held a piece of paper out to his prized student Uchiha Sasuke. If I am to teach you my special technique, we need to see that you have the right affinity. Sasuke paused as he reached out for the paper. Where's Uzumaki? He's in the next stage of the exams too. He wasn't sure why he started to care about Naruto's development. He knew that to wake the Mangekyo he had to kill his best friend, but since the mission where they fought Zabuza he had felt an affection. Maybe this is what it was to have a friend. He decided to let the emotion run through him. He needed a real friend. He couldn't awaken the Mangekyo by killing a fake friend. Uzumaki Naruto has proven that he isn't ready to become a chunin. You do. Now take this paper. Sasuke lifted the paper up and the reaction was almost instantaneous. The paper wrinkled till it looked ancient and burst into a brilliant flame that continued to burn for some time. Well then, it appears you have an affinity for fire and lightning. Excellent. Hey, Mullet-sensei, I thought you were going to teach me taijutsu, you know? Why do I need to do this paper test thing? Katanakaji pushed the paper forward again, with a more resolute face this time. With your lack of training in certain basics and mastery of high-level jutsus, simple taijutsu is the wrong way to go with such a short time left. I shall teach you nintaijutsu, close combat that incorporates ninjutsu in the attack. I shall also train you in the use of a weapon that best suits your elemental affinity. Now let's get on with this. Naruto held the paper tightly and waited for it to react. Suddenly, the paper fell apart. Ah, a wind affinity. Very good. I have just the weight. Katanakaji and Naruto looked again as the paper then went on to wrinkle. Lightning nature. It's a bit delayed, which suggests it's perhaps only developing now that you're learning Iryo ninjutsu. Naruto gave him a confused look. Why would me learning something affect my affinity? Katanakaji picked up the pieces of paper and scrunched it in his hand. There is always the potential to learn different elements even without having an affinity, but an affinity can change with our bodies too. Iryo ninjutsu deals with the body and the body doesn't just have chakra flowing around it. There's also electrical signals coming from the brain. You were clearly born with a wind affinity, but your new experiences with this difficult area of ninjutsu has forced your body to adapt. Naruto nodded in understanding. I see. So what are you going to train me in? Swords? Staves? Katanakaji stood and brought down an ornate box. It was decorated with wind iconography. He opened the box to reveal two black Tessen, iron fans. Fans? I'm going to beat Neji with little fans? That Sunakunoichi at least had a giant one, but these? Katanakaji picked one of them and flung it across the room towards a training dummy. The Tessen sliced through the dummy and lodged itself 6 inches into the stone wall. After retrieving it, Katanakaji handed them both to an awed Naruto. I found these Tessen on the battlefield during the Third Shinobi War. There's no record of them, so we named them Swirl and Swoop. They are made from a steel that never dulls and never misses. Tessenjutsu greatly complements wind-style jutsus. You will be able to channel wind chakra into your attacks. The speed and sharpness will increase at least 10-fold. They began training, and once Naruto got over his reluctance towards using weapons that looked so flimsy, he found he had a natural talent for Tessenjutsu. So you fought in the Third Shinobi War, Mullet-sensei? Why aren't you a jonin, you know? Katanakaji surged forward and floored his student. I will not talk about it until you have fought in a real battle. You will not understand what I have experienced until then. Naruto looked at his sensei, and it was a look he had seen in his teammates during the mission to the Land of Waves, something he had felt too. Someone you knew died. A comrade. Katanakaji looked at him in shock. That someone so young could see the pain in others. Naruto sat himself back up. It was a mission in the Land of Waves. We walked into a fight way above our rank, you know? Zabuza and his student, a boy with special abilities called Haku. Haku was better than any of us, and he managed to skewer Sasuke with a ton of senbon. I thought he was dead. I knew from then on that we could die during a mission, that the life of a ninja was dangerous. It probably doesn't compare to what you must have seen, you know? But I think I get why you wouldn't want to do it anymore. You can't bear to see your comrades die, but you still want to help, so you make stuff that can protect them. Katanakaji didn't get the chance to reply because that was when Tenten appeared. Naruto-kun, we need to get going if you want to reach your interview on time. Grab a shower and I'll pack your things. Naruto nodded and ran out. The young kunoichi collected the Tessenjutsu scrolls and put them in Naruto's bag with swirl and swoop and waved goodbye to her dad before running out. The weapons master of Konoha sat down and sobbed. How could this child have gone through so much by his age that he could empathize with a shell-shocked former ANBU? He had removed himself from the affairs of other ninja for nearly 20 years after the death of his first wife. His second wife ran a small smithy, and when he started working there, he soon turned it into what it was today. He kept his former comrades safe and provided for his family, but the hurt remained. The loss of Mai had nearly killed him. There was barely anything left of him when he met Hana. Naruto wanted to be Hokage, and Katanakaji believed he would. He was his father's son. At the Konoha Medical Center, the Irionin Maitate was again looking at Rock Lee's lab results. His body was a mess. It seemed most of his bones had been broken at some time or another, and the strain of opening his chakra gates had shaken his old injuries open. All of this combined with the damage done by a partial Sabakukyu had destroyed this young man. That this boy was recovering at all was a miracle. He desperately wanted something to show to Might Guy that would give him hope. It had broken Maitate's heart to see a man he had seen as a role model for pushing yourself to succeed just sitting outside a room for days on end. Maitate-sensei. Maitate turned to the source of the voice to see his old assistant. When he had just started at the center, a young girl had started to follow him around. Her name was Tenten. She said she wanted to be a splendid kunoichi like Tsunade. But it had become apparent that she had no ability when it came to Iryo Ninjutsu, and she had stopped coming not long after. Earlier that day, she had surprised him with a visit and a request. She had a friend in the Chunin exams who had little to no money and had been learning Iryo Ninjutsu and Fuinjutsu. From what she had said, he had real talent. He smiled. Tenten, it's good to see you so soon after your last visit. Have you brought this potential staff member? She nodded and brought his attention to an orange-garbed blonde. His Hitai-8 was tied around his neck. His cheeks had markings like whiskers, and he had a diamond fixed to his forehead. Uzumaki Naruto's appearance had changed since he had last seen him. Uzumaki, I must be frank with you. From what I have seen, you can't possibly be the same person Tenten was telling me about. In your fight with Inuzuka, you showed poor chakra control and won through luck. Tenten pulled Maitate to face her. Maitate-sensei, Naruto-kun has been training non-stop and used Shosenjutsu perfectly. Maitate knew Tenten wasn't in the habit of lying, so decided to give her the benefit of the doubt for this. Alright then, Naruto, you're a member of Team 7, right? What has Hataki-san taught you? Naruto seemed uncomfortable at this. Tree walking. Maitate motioned for him to continue. That's it. Maitate dropped his files. What? But he's had you for 6 months. He nominated your team for the Chunin exams. Have you learned nothing else? Naruto nodded. I met a ninja called Jiraiya who taught me water walking. Then there was a ninja called Shimura who gave me the Uzumaki clan scrolls, and I started working through them by myself, and today I started learning Tessenjutsu with Tenchan's father. According to the chakra paper test, I have an affinity for wind and lightning. Maitate was stunned. If Tenten and Naruto were both telling the truth, then Naruto was a self-taught Iryo Ninjutsu prodigy. And the names he had mentioned. Jiraiya was the legendary Toad Sage, and yet he had apparently walked away from being this genin's mentor? The second name gave him further pause. Shimura Danzo was a conservative man and a powerful ninja with a long history of fighting for Konoha from the shadows. Out of all the ninja Naruto had met, it was Danzo that had given the boy a chance to flourish. I can put you on the rota for general medical assistance, bedside manner, a bit of paperwork and cataloging stock. I'll give you some exercises to work on, and if by the end of the week I'm satisfied, I'll move you into a nursing position until we can properly put you into the medical program, which would probably be after the Chunin exams. Maitate took out a pen and wrote on a piece of paper. This will be your hourly wage, and if you want to start as soon as I could do with. He was interrupted by a yell from the blonde genin. This much an hour? Gimme a 2-hour shift, and that's more than I'd make in one mission. Tenten and Maitate shared a look. Irionin's salary was quite comfortable, but for those just starting it was worse than genin mission pay. A way of weeding out those who weren't committed to the level of study Iryo ninjutsu required. If this rate of pay was better in Naruto's eyes, then someone had been taking most of Naruto's pay. Alright, things to do you know. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly there was a small fleet of Uzumakis in the corridor. The original stepped forward. Alright guys, you lot go to the training grounds, you guys go home and work on Maitate-sensei's jutsu exercises. The rest of us are gonna work here the rest of the day. Maitate-sensei, just point us where you need us. You know? Maitate felt a cold sweat coming down the back of his neck. What had he agreed to? Maitate desperately tried to pull the files from his pupil. Naruto, these are Lee's personal files. You aren't authorized to read them. Naruto pulled again. How am I supposed to fix him if you won't show me what's wrong? Idiot. I'm supposed to fix him. You're not an official Iryonin yet. Stop pretending you are. Naruto hadn't needed a week to prepare for his test. He'd completed them all before the end of his second shift. He had even managed to efficiently coordinate all his clones across the entire medical center. Maitate was ready to believe that he would go down in history as the man who trained the greatest Iryonin in history. The only problem was that Naruto was very eager to reach the next level. He had taken to wearing an Iryonin uniform, beige shoes and trousers, beige high-collared long coat and a beige bandana. He had customized it with an orange sash wrapped around his waist and the Uzumaki clan crest decorating the shoulders and back. Naruto had managed to get a copy of Lee file in the end and was studying it at Ichiraka Ramen when he saw a familiar face walk by. Shikamaru. Hey, wanna have some ramen with me? The lazy genin walked over to his friend to see if he could get a free meal. It would be a bother to pay for a meal. I've been invited to Naruto. Naruto shook his head. It's fine, Shika. I'm making good money now. I can definitely pay for you, you know? Shikamaru noticed a coat from the medical center, and the folder Naruto was looking at was clearly also from the medical center. He sat down next to his old pranking friend and asked him, Naruto, why does it look like you're studying to be an Iryonin? Naruto handed Shikamaru a bowl of ramen. Because I am? I'm actually already an unofficial Iryonin at the moment. They aren't bringing anyone onto the program until after the Chunin exams are finished, but I finished the basic medical staff training, and I've been helping with various treatments too. Right now, I'm trying to see if there's anything the others missed about Caterpillar Brow's prognosis. I think there might be a way if we could just get his chakra working harder, you know. Shikamaru didn't know that. He also didn't know what had happened to his friend. He had gone from a rough and tumble prankster to a cheerful and ambitious doctor. Naruto, you do know we've got the Chunin exams coming soon? And you said you were going to wipe the floor with Hyuga freaking Neji? How is performing surgery going to make you able to beat a Juken prodigy? It would be such a bother if after all that noise you went and failed. Naruto lifted a piece of wood and ran his hand over it in a pattern. Letters began to appear, carved into the wood. Intense situations gives birth to rapid growth. Iryo ninjutsu requires mega accuracy, you know? I now have much better control over my chakra, and I have come up with a number of ways to beat an opponent. I've also been training with Tenten's dad. He says I've made serious progress. I'll be more than ready to face Neji. Shikamaru didn't get it. He just wanted to live an ordinary life and do as little as possible. Get married and have some kids, then retire early, so he can spend his days looking at clouds and playing shogi. Why do you want to work so hard? It's such a bother. Naruto shook his head and ordered some more ramen. You don't get it, Shika. You work hard now and get to the highest level of your field, then you can get what you want. At the medical center, the best Iryonin get their pick of cases. They can get away with one a month if they are that good. Shikamaru hadn't thought of that. Low-level ninja don't really get the option to have their pick of missions like the top-tier ones. The jobs would obviously be harder and bothersome, but the level of time off he could get. This changed things. Maybe Asuma-sensei was still in the mood for training. Hey Shika, do you want to drop in and see Caterpillar Brows tomorrow? Maybe he can convince you to not be such a lazy ass. He grinned, his way of convincing people to do what he wants. He sighed, it would be too much of a bother to start seriously training now, and it might be nice to see if this Lee guy had any training pointers he could use. They entered Lee's room to find the red-headed boy from Sunagakure standing over their fellow Konoha genin. His sands swirling over the bed like a serpent preparing to strike. What do you think you're doing? Naruto yelled as the redhead turned. I was trying to kill him. He made to approach them but found himself frozen in place. He looked down to see his shadow being touched by another shadow. Shikamaru held the redhead in Kageme no Jutsu. Why is there a need for you to do that? You already beat him. What is your grudge with a crippled genin? Shikamaru found himself worrying. The redhead had been utterly calm despite their interruption and despite his paralysis. Could he still manipulate his sands? Were his teammates nearby and watching? This situation was fast becoming less bothersome and more dangerous. I have no grudge. Both Konoha genin looked at the redhead in shock. I'm going to kill him just because I want to kill him. Chapter 4. A Reason to Live. Gaara's darkened view. They entered Lee's room to find the red-headed boy from Sunagakure standing over their fellow Konoha genin. His sands swirling over the bed like a serpent preparing to strike. What do you think you're doing? Naruto yelled as the redhead turned. I was trying to kill him. He made to approach them but found himself frozen in place. He looked down to see his shadow being touched by another shadow. Shikamaru held the redhead in Kageme no Jutsu. Why is there a need for you to do that? You already beat him. What is your grudge with a crippled genin? Shikamaru found himself worrying. The redhead had been utterly calm despite their interruption and despite his paralysis. Could he still manipulate his sands? Were his teammates nearby and watching? This situation was fast becoming less bothersome and more dangerous. I have no grudge. Both Konoha genin looked at the redhead in shock. I'm going to kill him just because I want to kill him. What the hell? You selfish prick. You think you can people on a whim? What kind of spoilt brat are you? Naruto, raged from his position, stood next to Shikamaru as they tried to stare down the visiting ninja from Sunagakure. Shikamaru tried to think. This guy is acting far too calm about everything. And he's dangerous. I don't know what kind of training Naruto has been getting, but going from my own ability and what I know, if we fight now we'll be killed. Naruto tapped Shikamaru's shoulder and nodded for him to move them to Lee. With Kageme in effect, Gaara was forced to walk round and soon they were stood where each other had been. The sand still lingered over Lee's body. If you get in my way, I'll kill you too. Gaara's expression didn't change. Oh yeah. Naruto's hand tapped the nearby table and a seal popped into the air. That was my personal alarm seal. All my Kages have been alerted, and they'll inform the medical staff and all the ninja in the area. Do you really think you can get away with killing 3 ninja before someone shows up? Shikamaru shivered. When did Naruto learn to create such a useful jutsu? Naruto, stop provoking this guy. His strength is monstrous. Naruto snorted, causing both Shikamaru and Gaara to stare at the genin with confusion. I've got a real monster in me. I won't lose to a no-brows creep like you. Naruto grinned, not with a prankster's glee like Shikamaru had seen so often. This grin was one of confidence one's abilities. With his blonde hair and his medical center longcoat, Naruto looked a lot like the pictures of the Yondaime Hokage. Gaara looked pensive. A monster, huh? Then it's the same for me. The 2 Konoha genin looked surprised. On my father, the Kazekage's orders, I was infused with the living incarnation of sand, Shikaku. I killed the one I would have called mother on the day I was born. I was born a monster. Shikaku? The name vibrated in the mind of the orange genin. Shikaku isn't a sand spirit, Naruto. He's a weak-ass tailed beast and the whiniest relative possible. Don't let him take control of the brat, Naruto. His voice grates. Naruto did his best to hide his shock. He's like me? Shikamaru forced a snort. With any luck, a show of bravado will make him look less scared. A possession jutsu at birth? Is that something a parent does? What a strange expression of love. Love! Gaara snorted at the word derisively. Don't judge me with your measuring stick. He took a moment to move the sand around them threateningly. Family? Let me tell you something about my family. They're just pieces of rancid meat swimming around me with hatred and murderous intent. Killing my mother proved my power, showed them I could be Tsunegakyo's masterpiece weapon. My father, the Kazekage, taught me the shinobi secrets and spoiled me. Let me do as I pleased. I thought that was love until… Naruto and Shikamaru pressed Gaara to continue. Until what? Gaara grinned as his eyes increased in size and the blood vessels became visible, making the previously emotionless ninja look unhinged. Until I was 6 years old, whereupon he decided to send assassins every day to kill me. Gaara continued to smile his disturbing smile. The village realized how dangerous I was and began to fear me. My father saw me as soon as trump card in a battle but realized I was a very dangerous being. To the village, I am a constant reminder of their violent past that they wished would disappear. Suddenly, dynamic entry. A green streak burst through the door and slammed into the red-haired ninja. Madogai held Gaara pinned to the ground on his belly. What is the meaning of these hijinks in this room while my precious subordinate is convalescing? Shikamaru grimaced. Guy clearly knew what was happening. He must have got Naruto's alarm. Gaara moved and faced the two genin again. Surrounded by hatred, I began to wonder why I existed, why I lived. I couldn't think of anything. But if one lives, one needs a reason. Otherwise, you're no better than the dead. Shikamaru and Guy looked confused. What? Naruto stared at the Suna weapon and felt as though he was looking into a mirror. He's like me, like us. The fox stirred. We've lived alone and surrounded by hatred. We strive to find recognition, a reason to live. When Iruka-sensei acknowledged me, I got my reason and the pain of loneliness didn't hurt as much. This poor fellow ninja. He hasn't had that. He only found a reason to exist by killing others. I felt alive when my pranks got me attention, any attention. He only felt alive by ending lives. We are so alike, yet it's like we're from totally different worlds. Gaara concentrated his sand and pushed. Guy ended up against the wall, still battle-ready. Let me feel alive again then, Gaara raved. Let me kill you. Come. Naruto walked over to him. Shikamaru began to sweat. Guy had undone the cage mane, and there was no way the young Nara clan member could call up the chakra to do it again. Whatever Naruto did, Shikamaru couldn't back him up. Naruto laid his hand on Gaara's shoulder. Hello, Gaara. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I'm going to heal the damage you've inflicted on Caterpillar Brows, and I'm going to heal your broken heart, so that the love you feel won't just be a tattoo on your head. Gaara's sand crumbled as the words unsettled the red head. He suddenly felt himself being lifted. I look forward to fighting you. Naruto then threw him out the window. What do you mean that wasn't an alarm? Shikamaru screamed. The window had been repaired and Guy was performing an unusual prayer at Lee's bedside. Sending healing vibes, as the unusual ninja said. Naruto smirked. The seal cancelled all my kages. The jutsu spreads my chakra across them also. By cancelling it, I would be facing no brows at full power. Do you not remember the patrol rotas we copied for our pranks? Jonin and Chunin that are on duty aren't anywhere near the medical center at this time of day. I was bluffing, you know? Shikamaru couldn't believe what he was hearing. Naruto gave Shikamaru's arm a squeeze. It worked out fine, Shika. Do you want to get some ramen? Shikamaru blushed. I have to go. I have training to do. Last week, before the exams, right? He made a hasty exit, leaving a bewildered Naruto. Shikamaru took a deep breath. He was a slacker at heart and had always planned a life of small effort followed by a plain woman for marriage, children, and a quick retirement. He had always thought women were tiresome and annoying, but he also knew he was reaching an age where he was going to start noticing people. He had thought that he would start seeing women as less of a bother, but that hadn't changed. His teammate was proof of that. He knew he was pretty smart, but there had been one possibility he hadn't thought of. Naruto. Guy finished his prayer and turned towards the orange genin. I was talking to Tenten the other day, and she told me something interesting about you. Naruto wasn't sure if Guy was upset or not and decided he couldn't back out of the coming conversation. I made a promise and I'm going to keep it. He again made the nice guy pose. I will give it my all and heal all of Team Guy. I will save Neji from his darkness and I will find a way to get Lee back to tip-top condition. Guy welled up and pulled Naruto into a hug. Ow, Naruto. I never realized Lee had made such close friends that they would want to help so much. Guy bawled out some more things but Naruto couldn't quite understand everything. Something about flames, youth, and springtime. Guy finally collected himself and handed a parcel to Naruto. As a token of my gratitude, take this. It should help greatly with your training. Naruto nodded and left Guy to continue his prayers. Danzo Shimura felt his whole body clench in agony and fell from his chair. Trouble, Danzo-san? A voice croaked from the shadows. A pale man with long jet-black hair emerged and took the fallen root leader's seat. Are my enhancements troubling you? Danzo snorted. He was well aware of Orochimaru's failsafe, a special genjutsu placed in the skin. If the snake Sannin wanted, he could kill Danzo on a whim. Are the arrangements made? Danzo sat up. I have withdrawn all root members. They believe it is an important mission. When you attack, you will have only Konoha's regular forces and Sarutobi's ANBU to face. Bile rose in his throat as he toadied to the whims of a traitor. You hate me, don't you, Danzo? Danzo blinked. I know and I understand, you old warhawk. I betrayed Konoha. Pa. I just wanted to learn the secrets of immortality. The fact remains that you needed me to give you your enhancement, so you have to accept my price. Otogekure and Sunagekure will invade and I will collect my new samples. Then Otogekure will pull out and leave you to return like big damn heroes. You'll no doubt become the next Hokage and anything you want will be done by the council that will see you were right all along about keeping vigilant. The Kazekage is already dead and they won't find out until I'm already gone. The plan is perfect, Danzo. Danzo stood up, his face gray. Did you have anything else to say, or did you just want to see me sprawl on the ground? Orochimaru chuckled and moved over to the door. Pleasure doing business with you, Godame Hokage. Ha ha ha. He sank into the ground as if swallowed by the shadows themselves. The Warhawk of Konoha went back to his desk and reached for his secret drawer. Imported whiskey. His other secret vice, after ramen at Ichiraku, was a sizable drink of Glenfiddich. As the drink burned its way down his throat, he thought of his last visit to Ichiraku. Naruto, had I only shared ramen with you sooner. Chapter 5. Sensei, Conversations and Guidance. Naruto gasped. Tenten-chan, this is so tight. I thought you said you'd done this before, you know? The Konoha kunoichi grunted with effort. She'd only done this once before and had forgotten how hard it had been. Just hold it together, Naruto-kun. I'm almost done. She took a deep breath and moved closer. With a great sigh of relief, she said, Done. Naruto looked in the mirror and the outfit that Tenten had given him. It was a smart shirt, trousers, and bow tie. I'm not sure about this Tenchan. It's not very functional, you know? I can barely breathe here. Tenten looked hurt. But Naruto-kun, you need a new outfit after what happened to your other outfit. It needed an update anyway. Plus, bow ties are cool. It makes you look like a proper doctor. Naruto shook his head, his eyes squinting and a frown on his face. Nah. Not for a ninja. What was wrong with my old outfit? Tenten picked up the remains. Who knew that practicing fire diversion would lead to burning down half of the dojo? Naruto's wind nintaijutsu training had really paid off. His natural affinity and his own adaptability had led to some interesting new techniques developed on the fly. And his Tessenjutsu, when combined with his nintaijutsu, had gotten to the point where Katanakaji had had to go all out. Tenten had never known that her father used tortoise summons. It's orange Naruto. Bright, eye-burning orange. Not the stealthiest color choice. Naruto sniffed. I wear orange because it's my favorite color. And I want people to see me Tenchan. At this, Naruto began to look serious again. Tenten moved over to him and undid his bow tie. Naruto, why does everyone seem to hate you? Naruto looked surprised. The adults mutter about you and all the other people our age said they do it because their parents did it. I don't understand it. And another thing, you said you could fight Neji-kun even without my father's training, but I can't see how. Naruto chuckled. causing Tenten to look at him curiously. Set up the dummies downstairs and I'll show you what I was talking about. I just need to change into something more comfortable. Tenten looked to his backpack and she felt a shiver run down her spine. Not you too, Naruto. I know Guy-sensei says that it helps with training, but dash. She didn't get to finish as he whipped out the green spandex jumpsuit and started grinning like a madman. How about a bet, Tenchan? If I can impress you while wearing this, you have to wear yours for training and eating ramen with me. If I don't, then I'll tell you why everyone hates me. He walked over to the kunoichi and held a hand out. Deal? Tenten decided this was a sure bet. Having worked with Guy-sensei and Likuin for so long, there was no way she could be impressed with that outfit. She took Naruto's hand. Deal. On the other side of Konoha's sublime green beast of prey felt a warm tingle. Someone is donning a wondrous green jumpsuit. The taijutsu master was leaving his favorite non-training establishment, the Curry Cinema. It was a new addition to Konoha, a Bollywood cinema that doubled as a curry house. It combined his favorite meal with movies of sweeping emotion. Today's film was a special run of 3 idiots. Funsuk Wangdu is right. One should follow excellence, not success, as success will come if excellence is followed. I shall no longer aim to meet my goals. I shall surpass them. If I say I will do 1,000 laps of Konoha, I will aim to surpass it rather than stop when I reach it. Ha! He felt the fires of youth burning hotter than ever within his belly. As he moved to begin, he ran straight into a passerby. Oh, I am so sorry, sir. I wasn't looking where I was go. He trailed off as the face of the man he hit came into view. His tan skin, his eyes squinting, almost closed. His brown hair still had its widow's peak, but while it was once shaved close, was now a long mullet. His sage green bomber jacket hung on his shoulders while he wore a sleeveless green jumpsuit. Sensei, Katanakaji-sensei, is it truly you? It's been a while, Boykuin. Has Nin game grown much since we last met? Katanakaji nodded to the sweating Jonin. He pulled out a cigarette and lit it. After taking a long puff and realizing his former student wasn't going to be in a state to talk for a time, he wrapped an arm around Guy and pulled him along with him. How about a bit of sightseeing? It's been a while since I have looked over Konoha from the Hokage mountain. Asuma-sensei, can I talk to you about something? The Team 10 leader turned to Shikamaru and nodded. Questions of his own began to form in his own mind as he led his pupil to a bench. In the past few days, his normally lazy student had become obsessed with training. They had made great progress with Kagekubashibari no Jutsu, and his stamina training was going at a good pace. What is troubling you, Shikamaru-kun? I have noticed a change in you. It's not unwelcome. I'm rather glad you've started taking training seriously. Shikamaru shifted uncomfortably. Asuma had never seen his student look so uncomfortable. I have started noticing someone. It's not something I expected. I find it bothersome. Asuma leaned forward, gesturing for him to continue. You know about my plan. A boring life followed by a marriage of convenience, a few kids and an early retirement. This attraction would upset that plan. And they put forward an interesting point. Higher ranks can be more selective. If I'm an elite jonin, then chances are they would only use me for a few important missions. Less work, which works for me. What should I do? Asuma-sensei crossed his arms. His student had used person and they. Gender-neutral terms meant it was a boy. A change in attitude going from his research on the other teams means Uzumaki. He had seen the boy working at the medical center and had heard about his rapid growth. It all added up. Certainly, there weren't any gay couples at the time, but it was well known that the Nidaime Hokage had preferred the company of men but never married. It had been a long time ago, so perhaps it wasn't as well known as he thought. Perhaps Shikamaru was thinking about needing an heir for the Nara clan? Whatever the case, he really was too young to be dealing with such matters. Nara Shikamaru may be a genius genin, but he was still only 13. Shikamaru, you are 13. Sexuality is a difficult thing to discuss at any time in life, and it can take years for some people to know what they're looking for. You shouldn't try to stick to a label to yourself until you have some more experience. My advice is to wait. Spend some more time with Naruto, and if something happens, it happens. Shikamaru blinked. Asuma smiled at the fact he could catch his student. He then began to lament that they weren't playing shogi. He would definitely have one with his student so distracted. In the basement dojo of Tenten's home, the brunette had set up the room as Naruto had asked. Level 10 Fuinjutsu exercise. Her father had helped her create an assault course that went through numerous levels. She had herself reached level 4 and had not yet mastered it. Level 10 was Jounin level, according to her father. Naruto stood waiting. Tenten moved back from the course. Are you sure about this, Naruto? Naruto nodded. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. At the Hokage's office, Hiruzen was staring out the window when a Chunin entered. Lord Hokage, Shimura Danzo has left Konoha. He left a letter saying he was going on a sabbatical, and he also left a message to put his financial resources on Uzumaki Naruto to win. The Hokage nodded and accepted the letters before sending the Chunin away. So, Orochimaru was going to be observing the Chunin exams. The Hokage mused to himself what Danzo had told him. In exchange for the power to combat and hold the nine-tailed fox within himself, the Warhawk of Konoha had made a deal with Hiruzen old pupil. The price was to not interfere in an attack on the village. From Danzo and Kakashi's reports, Hiruzen concluded that the Snake Sannin was looking for research materials and had something special planned for the young Uchiha. I will have to prepare then, for my final battle with one who was once my most treasured pupil. Tenten didn't know what to say. The walls of the dojo were a mess. She had never seen such destruction. Naruto turned to her and grinned. I can only hold it for a short time, you know? I think 30 seconds to a minute depending on what Fuinjutsu I'm dealing with. But you see what I mean? She looked at the orange genin and noticed something strange. Is it meant to affect your hair too? The boy looked confused, so she continued. Your hair is longer than it was when you started. And during your hair looked almost. She shook her head, had to be her imagination. Something else. The way you moved was like. Naruto put his hands up. I know, I was surprised when I learned about a shared heritage. I don't think they remember, but I think it might be fun to remind them. Naruto moved to collect up all the weapons and repairing the damage, and Tenten joined him. I have the nine-tailed fox sealed in me. That's why everyone hates me. Tenten dropped the bundle of kunai she was holding. What? Naruto fiddled with the jumpsuit till he managed to peel the torso part down. She watched as his bare stomach slowly became decorated with a large seal on it. The Yondaime Hokage didn't kill the fox. He instead sealed him in a newborn baby. The Sandaime Hokage made it against the law or the adults to tell anyone, even me, about it. But people were seeing me as the fox that killed all their friends and comrades instead of the boy that the fox was imprisoned in. Naruto felt himself getting pulled into a hug. Wah dash. Thank you for telling me. I know you didn't have to, and I understand why you'd be hesitant. They stayed that way for a while until Tenten pushed herself up. I've got another idea for a costume. We'll need to stop at a few shops, so we best get going now. With that, she took Naruto's hand and dragged him away with her, forgetting that he was wearing a jumpsuit and that he'd rolled it half down. On the Hokage Mountain, Madogai finally regained his capacity for conversation. You've been training Naruto-kun, haven't you? Katanakaji folded his arms. And what if I have? He had chosen to wear the outfit he had often worn during his days as a ninja for this purpose. Guy felt himself feeling nervous in the presence of his old sensei who had, if anything, had become even more muscular in his long retirement. He wasn't receiving training anywhere else. Guy choked at this. What? But his team leader is my eternal rival, Copy Ninja Kakashi. Surely he would be training his pupil in the run-up to his match against Neji-kun. Katanakaji shook his head and Guy dropped to sit on a rock. I see. I had always thought Hatake was so very cool and hip the way he acted, but now I see he just didn't really care. I'm afraid I have failed you, sensei. I have not chosen my rival well. I thought that a student of your eternal rival would be best suited, but it would appear that was a mistake. Katanakaji punched his former student hard. Fool! You have chosen a nemesis, not a rival. He is your opposite, and so you must overcome him. It is true that my rival was more of a friendly eternal rival, but that doesn't mean you have to do it the same as me. From what I hear, you have successfully created plans of attack specifically for fighting Sharingan. That is quite an achievement, Boy-kun. Naruto came to my house and treated my daughter's injuries, so I offered to compensate him. Further, Yondaime listed my retirement as extended sick leave owing to bereavement and trauma. I am technically still listed as a Konoha Jonin and ANBU general. Therefore, I have broken no laws. I am relieved by your words, sensei. I should tell you, Orochimaru is in the village and we know he plans to invade soon, with help from Tsunagakure. You may want to prepare for a fight. Katanakaji smiled. I think I'll leave the fighting to Naruto. He is well on his way to surpassing his father. Chapter 6. Proud Failure. The Chunin exams are about to start. In the forests of Konoha, Neji had completed his final burst of training before the Chunin exams. All around him were broken and shattered blades but for a perfect circle. Tenten gasped for breath, her body and her chakra resources exhausted. It's perfect, Neji. Neji didn't nod or acknowledge the comment. That's enough of a warm-up. Let's go. He didn't wait for her to agree or catch. He merely moved with a single-minded resolve that conflicted with his style. The Hyuga's Juken used subtle, circular movements while Neji was direct and unyielding. The Hyuga prodigy began to consider his matches. Uzumaki would be an easy win. He had no talent or skill to speak of. After that, he would be facing either the last Uchiha or the red-haired ninja from Suna. Now that he had mastered Hakusho Kaiten, he knew it was superior to the Suna boy's sand, and he also knew Uchiha couldn't keep up with his speed. That left. Hey Neji, gasped Tenten once she caught up. Neji turned his head slightly to listen to his teammate. Neji, do you remember that present your uncle left when you joined Team Guy? Neji returned to staring forward. Yes, he remembered. He threw it in the trash. Well, I kept it and I gave it to someone. I hope you don't mind. Neji didn't over a reply, he merely added distance between them. The Kunoichi Genin sighed and hoped she had made the right decision. Maitate sat in his office staring at the report his apprentice/assistant/bane of his existence had left. Chakra stimulants harvested from plant life in the ruins of Uzushiogakure could be used for a number of maladies they had had trouble with recently, and with help from the Yamanaka clan, they should be able to cultivate it in their own village. He sighed. This treatment wouldn't completely heal Rock Lee, only improve the quality of life outside of being a ninja. The Irionin still couldn't believe how much work the Genin had done in such a short time without even being made an official candidate for the medical program. He pulled out a blank scroll and began to write out his recommendation for a mission to the ruined city of Naruto's clan to retrieve the plant, wanting to get it filed before he went to see how his protege did in his fight with his patient's teammate. Sarutobi Hiruzen was visiting the memorial alone, offering prayers to the fallen and for those who would soon follow. A number of his best Jonin and ANBU were on missions far away from the village, and by Danzo's estimates the combined Otogakure and Tsunagakure forces outnumbered them 5-1. The only one of his students he was in contact with had disappeared with his student. He shook his head dismissively. He had seen Ms. Haruno the day after he had heard what had happened from Danzo. The Pinkette was wearing an outfit almost exactly the same as the one Tsunade had worn at that age. He had asked around. Sakura had researched Jiraiya at the library along with Tsunade and then gone shopping. Clothes and perfume that had been Tsunade's preference. Everyone who knew Jiraiya knew his weakness for Tsunade, and the image of one from before their team fell apart probably tugged at his guilt over losing Orochimaru than his, as he'd refer to it, super pervert side. Shikamaru dodged another punch as he tried to focus, molding his chakra for the jutsu. Pushing himself to the limit at this late in the training period, he wasn't hoping for miracles. He only hoped he could at least master this jutsu before he had to get to the stadium. Sarutobi grinned as he pulled out his trench blades and made a wide swipe at his student's head. The shadow wielder barely ducked in time and kicked out, knocking a blade out of his sensei's left hand. Finally he felt it, he saw the shape and he saw his target and he sent it out. The Sand siblings Temari and Kankuro were not at ease. In fact, they were downright terrified. For the past week, after he came back from disappearing in the middle of the day, their little brother Gaara had radiated bloodlust. Even Baki's presence, representing the Kazakage's authority, wasn't enough to quell the rage radiating from the host of Shikaku. All they heard him say was Uzumaki, Naruto. They couldn't figure out why he would say that name though. They'd met the Uzumaki boy and seen him in battle, he was useless. After checking the time, Kankuro did some last-minute tweaking on his puppets while Temari polished her fan. As the Sandaime Hokage finished his thoughts, he turned to see a man he'd not seen in over 10 years. The customized bomber jacket worn over his shoulders, the sleeveless green jumpsuit and the long mullet. The student of his student. He smiled. Katanakaji, it has been a long time. His smile dropped when the often cheerful, often ridiculously so, man did not change his stern look. Katanakaji? The master weapons maker of Konohagakure pulled a scroll out of his jacket. I have long abided by the wishes of the Council of Elders, and I have had a great deal of work to do while raising my daughter. My wife and I are set on this. You will rescind Jiraiya's claim on Naruto as godfather and bestow them on me. He handed the scroll over. Shikamaru greedily ate as he tried to restore his chakra after the intense training. One of Choji's pills and an early trip to a shop for numerous bags of crisps had nearly done it, but he was now ravenous from the evaporation of body fat. Asuma-sensei was still out for the count. The jutsu had worked. You're acting really weird, Shikamaru, crunched Choji between mouthfuls of crisps. I thought training was a bother, but now you're training a lot. Shikamaru chuckled. I had a thought, Choji. If I get to a high enough level, then I get to do as much or as little as I want. If I train and work hard now, it means I get to work less later. Choji nodded and continued eating, not convinced. Shikamaru sighed and concentrated on keeping the image of performing the jutsu in his head. This is where we first became a team, thought Naruto as he enjoyed a cup of instant ramen on the training ground where Kakashi had given them the bell test. The lesson of self-sacrifice and teamwork had been a good one, but given he'd been abandoned by his entire team, he had to wonder if they had been learning the same lesson. And Naruto-kun? Naruto turned to see Hinata, hiding slightly behind one of the wooden posts. Hinata-chan, are you all right now? The Hyuga girl blushed nervously but moved away from the post to stand nearer to the blonde genin. And Naruto, what are you doing here? Isn't today the finals? She shifted from crossed arms to holding her arms behind her back as she waited for an answer. Naruto saw this and remembered the words she had used in her fight with Neji. Oh, so that's how it is. I'm just taking some time to think how far I've come since I became a genin. He set the finished cup down and turned back to focus on Hinata. Neji's your cousin, right? She nodded. He's strong, right? Another nod. I think something happened when he was younger, something to do with his dad dying. That's made him so angry. I'm going to find out. He nodded to Hinata and turned to leave. Naruto, wait. The blonde stopped and turned. When I fought him and why you cheered for me, I felt like I had become stronger. Even though I lost, I started to like myself more. Most people don't think I've changed, but I know now that I can change. I was able to tell people my nindo, that I learned from you. Thank you. Naruto blushed. Though he would never admit it, he had enjoyed being the kind of person who helped people find their way in life. Like when he had helped Konohamaru, and when he had helped Inari. Now Hinata. Hinata, after the exams I'm going to play ninja with Konohamaru and his friends, then help them with their homework. Would you like to join me? You're better at the written stuff than me, you know. Hinata turned a deep shade of red, so Naruto walked over to her and tapped her shoulder. I think you'd really enjoy it. Hinata nodded. As Naruto began to head off again, she called out to him again. Naruto, my cousin may be strong and may have never lost, but you have. Because you've failed in the past, you have the strength to get back up. I think that's what true strength is. Neji is strong, but you are very strong. It's what I always liked about you and Naruto. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Hinata. I was feeling depressed over stuff, but now, after all you've said, I feel great, you know? Hinata felt pride swell in her. Not only had she managed to keep a conversation going with Naruto, she had made him feel better. You know, Hinata, about you, She moved closer to listen to him. I always thought you were a plain lewing, dark weirdo. Hinata felt herself crumple. And that's the kind of person I like best. I'm gonna go kick Neji's ass, so be sure to watch me. He left for the stadium and didn't notice that Hinata had frozen. Naruto looked around the stadium, looking for any sign of Sasuke. He couldn't believe Sasuke would be late for this. Could he have picked up on Kakashi's tardiness? Hey kid, eyes up front. Need to face your future customers. The new proctor, chewing a senbon, then turned to the people in the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for our rising new stars. Kiba Inuzuka had resorted to prodding Hinata with a stick. Hinata, what the hell? We're going to miss Shino's fight. Chapter 7. The main event commences. As the people of Konoha began entering the stadium for the final part of the Chunin exam, the Sandaime Hokage again peered at the scroll that Katanakaji had given him at the memorial monument. It was the same scroll he had been handed 14 years ago when he had returned to office. Adoption. Katanakaji had entered the council room with his wife, the civilian Hana, and demanded that the son of Minato and Kushina be placed in his care. While the Hyuga and the Nara clan leaders backed the proposal, both had served with the everlasting Titan of the Hidden Leaf and knew he would be a good and watchful guardian. Others had not been so sure. Shimura Danzo had questioned letting the boy grow up among the civilians, and the head of the civilian population, Haruno Ken, had strongly opposed having the demon living near him and his daughter. In the end, they had turned down Katanakaji. He was no longer a ninja and could not be entrusted with guardianship of a child that like Naruto. Now though, Katanakaji had revealed he had never officially retired, merely on extended sick leave. Hiruzen took a long puff of his pipe. Naruto may well reach the position of Chunin on this day and would be officially recognized as a man of Konoha. However, he was also barely into his teens and had been without a family all his life. Perhaps giving Naruto this would be the right thing to do. Shikamaru watched the other genin arrive. He had managed to be early despite bottoming out his chakra reserves and then having to restore them earlier that day. He could see no sign of the Dosu guy who he had to fight, who had beaten Choji. He saw his other opponent though, the Suna Kunoichi Temari. That giant fan was gleaming from excellent care and showed no scratch from when it was used to crush Tenten. He saw her look at him and recognized the thoughtful look she gave him. She was sizing him up, analyzing. Could she be like me? He thought to himself. Could she be a tactical thinker who plans ahead of a fight before it even starts? There had been a reason for his earliness. He had mapped out the battlefield, looked for weaknesses in the ground and checked the size of the shadows. He just hoped his match was at the right time of day. Hyuga Neji, Juken genius and member of the branch house of the Hyuga clan, stood proud in the center of the stadium waiting for the finals to get underway. It looked like everyone had been training hard over the month. Even the lazy Nara Shikamaru. He couldn't make up his mind with the future Nara clan leader. He often seemed to sleep through things, and yet when awake it was clear he had a keen intellect. He decided that he ought to keep an eye on him, to be sure. He continued his observations until he realized his opponent wasn't there. He turned to the entranceway and saw him, and immediately remembered what Tenten had said earlier about the present from Uncle Hayashi that he had thrown in the trash. Up in the seating area, Hyuga Hayashi gave a gasp at the sight of Naruto. Despite the obvious color change, he recognized the traditional Hyuga garb he had intended for Neji to wear. Kiba Inuzuka had resorted to prodding Hinata with a stick. Hinata! What the hell? We're going to miss Shino's fight. Hinata finally unfroze and Kiba relaxed. What happened, Hinata-chan? Who was that blonde Hyuga you were talking to? Shikamaru stared agape at his transformed friend. Black hakama trousers with a light orange kimono orange. He wore a darker orange Mantsuki Haori over it. The spiral that adorned so many ninja garbs in Konoha was emblazoned where the Mon, family crests, were supposed to be. His obi sash was black with what appeared to be spiraling orange foxtails decorating it. Naruto's Hitai-8 was tied onto the obi, leaving his forehead bare and showing the diamond that he had recently gained. He was no longer wearing the typical ninja sandals. He now had split-toed, white tabi socks, and Sita appeared to be two sticks tucked into the obi, but Shikamaru couldn't guess what they were. Something he recognized, though, was the Iryo-Inai coat, which the blonde genin was wearing on his shoulders. All in all, the dead last genin looked more. Naruto looked around the stadium, looking for any sign of Sasuke. He couldn't believe Sasuke would be late for this. Could he have picked up on Kakashi's tardiness? Hey kid, eyes up front. Need to face your future customers. The new proctor chewing a senbon then turned to the people in the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for our rising new stars. Shiranui Gunma, proctor for the final part of the exams, wasn't sure what to make of the blonde genin. He looked like a younger version of the Yondaime Hokage, wearing his confidence like his coat. He had seen the trainee Iryonin at work when he'd visited a friend at the medical center. The kid had been everywhere at once, totally focused on task. It was unreal that a genin, who hadn't even finished his Chunin exams, was fast becoming an Iryonin genius. The Hokage rose up and moved to the balcony while the Kazekage remained seated. Thanks everyone for coming to the Konoha Chunin selection exam. There was a great applause. We will now start the main matches. Shikamaru gave a sigh of relief. It seemed Dosu had quit the exam, so he no longer had an extra match to fight, which meant he just had Baki, the leader of the Sand siblings on their invasion of Konoha mission, glared at Gaara. There was no sign of Uchiha Sasuke, and there was Gaara's disappearance not long before they were due to arrive that day. Could he really have done this? After I repeatedly told him not to attract attention. Okay guys, it's a different setting but the rules are the same as before. You fight until one of you dies or acknowledges defeat. I'll step in if I think the fight's over. You got that? The assembled genin all gave the slightest of nods. This was serious. No joking or questions now. Alright, first match is Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto. You two stay while the rest go to the waiting area. Hinata and Kiba were barely able to find a seat, but were able to see as Neji and Naruto stepped forward to face each other. Above them, Ino and Choji were sat staring intently at the arena floor. Against someone like Neji, Naruto has no chance, whispered the blonde florist while the pleasingly plump genin opened another bag of crisps. I don't know Ino-chan. Shikamaru has been different ever since he went for ramen with Naruto. Maybe Naruto is different too. I haven't seen him for a while and he looks really serious down there. A chunin with brown hair combed to cover his right eye and another with spiky black hair started going over the odds. That blonde genin has a lot of luck, but that Hyuga kid. The other nodded. Indeed, that Hyuga kid is too tough for just luck to carry you through. My money's on Hyuga. Hyuga Hinata sat beside them, listened to the conversation and fumed. Rising up, Hinata turned to them. You're wrong. Naruto is really strong. Stronger than you realize. She was shocked, as was Kiba. In the past, Hinata had never stood up for herself like that. Kiba then heard whining coming from his shoulder. What is it, Akamaru? He turned and saw a hooded ANBU standing not far from where they were seated. An ANBU? What's going on? As they stood staring at each other, waiting for the call to begin, Hyuga Neji spoke in a sneering tone. You look like you have something to say? The blonde raised his hand into a fist and Neji was reminded of the last time they had looked upon each other. I told you before, you're definitely going down. Neji looked at his opponent and activated the Byakugan. Naruto watched him as he adopted a fighting stance. The eyes of a person who totally believes in himself. There's no doubt in him. Neji watched as Naruto adopted a similar stance and stared into the blonde's eyes. The eyes of a person who totally believes in himself. There's no doubt in him. Hyuga Hayashi turned to his daughter. You said you had a strange doctor when you went to the medical center yesterday. The young heir to the Hyuga main family nodded. That's him. He kept talking about some plant he was having brought here for a medicinal treatment he'd come up with. He was able to reset my leg and used Shosenjutsu. Not even a scar. He even did a cosmetic once-over of my older injuries and Hayashi's face tensed. He wanted to know about our clan. He said it was for a history project. Sorry, father. Hayashi tensed for a moment but decided it was unlikely that the blonde boy could know anything about. It's of no matter, Hanabi. I want you to watch your cousin carefully. There isn't another Hyuga like Neji. Hanabi nodded. Yes, father. Now the first fight. Begin. Chapter 8. Fight. Destiny and Guts Clash. A chunin with brown hair combed to cover his right eye and another with spiky black hair started going over the odds. That blonde genin has a lot of luck, but that Hyuga kid. The other nodded. Indeed, that Hyuga kid is too tough for just luck to carry you through. My money's on Hyuga. Hyuga Hinata sat beside them, listened to the conversation and fumed. Rising up, Hinata turned to them. You're wrong. Naruto is really strong. Stronger than you realize. She was shocked, but not as shocked when a hand tapped her shoulder. Thanks, Hina-chan. Boss down there will be glad to know that. The Kage Bunshin turned to the two chunin. Hey, you feel like making a bet on this fight then? I win, you have to pay my tab at Ichiraku Ramen. The two chunin turned to each other and whispered before turning to face the Kage Bunshin. What if we win? We don't have any debts and no non-clan genin would have anywhere near enough money to give us a decent jackpot. The whiskered Irionin chuckled and the two Chunin moved closer. If you win, I will set you up with a medical plan that will cut your fees by 60% while receiving ANBU level treatment. He smirked at the dropped jaws of the two Chunin. ANBU could show up any day, any hour and receive no questions medical treatment. And to receive that kind of access to medical treatment for only 40% of what they had to pay for Chunin level cover. Deal. Hyuga Hayashi turned to his daughter. You said you had a strange doctor when you went to the medical center yesterday. The young heir to the Hyuga main family nodded. That's him. He kept talking about some plant he was having brought here for a medicinal treatment he'd come up with. He was able to reset my leg and used Tessenjutsu. Not even a scar. He even did a cosmetic once-over of my older injuries and Hayashi's face tensed. He wanted to know about our clan. He said it was for a history project. Sorry, father. Hayashi tensed for a moment but decided it was unlikely that the blonde boy could know anything about. It's of no matter, Hanabi. I want you to watch your cousin carefully. There isn't another Hyuga like Neji. Hanabi nodded. Yes, father. Now the first fight. Begin. Neji flinched from the absence of movement. He had expected the blonde genin to charge at him the second the proctor made the call. But instead, Naruto had begun to slowly move around, circling him. No, he was moving closer. Neji decided to move in a similar fashion. Though his steps were deliberate and spaced out, Naruto's steps were more like a shuffle. The young heir to the Hyuga main branch turned to her father. Father, is this all that Nijine is going to do? She couldn't fathom what was going on. The two genin had merely been circling one another for the past half hour. Hayashi tensed. It is a sound strategy. They are focusing all their energy on each other, looking for an opening. Normally this would be a simple matter of waiting till one dropped their guard. However, if Nijikuin doesn't do something soon about that Uzumaki, it won't matter if his stamina is greater. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly, four exact clones of Naruto appeared and surged towards Neji. The Hyuga prodigy paused at this. The Kage Bunshin was a Jonin-level Kenjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll that had been stolen 6 months ago. The academy instructor Mizuki had been arrested for it, but it was said that he had manipulated a student to steal it for him. So, you are the moron who stole a scroll? Behind the 4 clones the original Naruto started. Yes, I heard about it. So you tried become stronger like that, huh? It won't do any good though. Your fate is already set in stone. Tenten blinked in surprise. Was this Naruto's idea of a trump card? The Kage Bunshin would make it difficult for Neji to find the original, but Neji was a Juken prodigy, with taijutsu skills beyond anything Naruto could learn in a month. She turned to her father. What is Naruto thinking? Katanakaji tensed. The Hyuga boy didn't see what was going on and Naruto seemed in no hurry. Clearly that move wasn't going to be his first plan, simply a reserve. He remembered the promises his slug prince had made to Tenten. He is preparing to show us all his new path, his new Nindo. Tenten looked confused but returned to watch the match. The clones charged at once, weaving from different directions. The Hyuga didn't even move. The veins round his eyes just seemed to flex more. He leapt at the last moment and delivered a brutal kick to the face of one clone while landing in a handstand on another. He spun and with an almighty crack the clone exploded just as the head appeared to leave the body, causing Naruto to wince and hold his neck as the memory invaded his mind. The last 2 clones were dispatched with a spin kick. Pathetic. To think you dream of being the Hokage. It's impossible for you to beat me with these all-seeing eyes. Talent is decided when we are born. Our destiny is decided before we are even born. You have nothing to distinguish yourself from the worthless losers you stand up for except a goofy grin. Your fate is to lose to me. Here. Damn Hyuga and double damn those all-seeing eyes, thought Naruto as the phantom pain in his neck burned. He knew his backup could finish this fight here and now, but he needed to know more. He needed to know why Neji felt such pain that he needed to hurt Hinachan the way he did. Why the hell do you get to decide things, huh? You think those eyes tell you everything you know? Growled the genin. Hyuga Neji sneered. So you think any shinobi can become the Hokage just by working hard? Kage is a title few shinobi are awarded. Think of our villages. A man who built a forest on a whim, another who could locate any enemy just by touching the ground, a genius who commands the Monkey King, and a man who could be everywhere at once, who defeated the nine-tailed demon fox. At this, Naruto felt his tenant growl with contempt. Look at the reality around you. Only one destiny is shared by all, that even a loser like you can achieve. Death. He still has that grudge against the main family? Why hasn't that boy activated his jutsu? What does he know about this situation? Hayashi couldn't understand what the Uzumaki boy was up to, but he was sure it couldn't be good. Another swarm of Kage Bunshin rushed at the Hyuga prodigy. 20 of them this time. Neji saw the one at the far back. The same strategy? What a fool. He rushed his way past the clones and pulled a kunai from one of them before leaping into the air to land right behind Naruto. It's over. The clones disappeared. Father, why is Naruto trying to use taijutsu? You were teaching him nintaijutsu on account of the lack of time. Katanakaji shook his head at his daughter's question. Initially, yes. However, I then discovered that Naruto had mastered the Kagebunshin no Jutsu and could divide his training up among many. I taught him a martial art that I thought would help him understand Juken tactics better. In fact, he read up on it and decided to adapt his Nindo to include its teachings. Tenten turned to her father. What martial art? Judo. Another swarm of Kage Bunshin rushed at the Hyuga prodigy. 20 of them this time. Neji saw the one at the far back. The same strategy? What a fool. He rushed his way past the clones and pulled a kunai from one of them before leaping into the air to land right behind Naruto. It's over. The clones disappeared. Neji drove the kunai forward but fell forward when the kunai was suddenly smoke. Two hands grabbed his arm. Sui Neji. Neji was suddenly in the air and then slamming into the ground. A trap. Neji rolled away from his opponent and tried to regroup, but the orange genin was on him straight away. Neji attempted a kick, but it was grabbed and Neji was swung by his own momentum into the air and then into the ground, face first. Held close together by the blonde genin, Neji struggled to break free. As long as we're this close, your all-seeing eye is pointless and you don't have the room to try choking my chakra points. I can just keep throwing you into the ground until... He didn't get to finish as Neji fixed his footing and then brought his stare to Naruto, radiating with Saki. Hakusho. Kaiten. Chapter 9. Juken. The flawless gentle fist. Another swarm of Kage Bunshin rushed at the Hyuga prodigy. 20 of them this time. Neji saw the one at the far back. The same strategy? What a fool. He rushed his way past the clones and pulled a kunai from one of them before leaping into the air to land right behind Naruto. It's over. The clones disappeared. Father, why is Naruto trying to use taijutsu? You were teaching him nintaijutsu on account of the lack of time. Katanakaji shook his head at his daughter's question. Initially, yes. However, I then discovered that Naruto had mastered the Kagebunshin no Jutsu and could divide his training up among many. I taught him a martial art that I thought would help him understand Juken tactics better. In fact, he read up on it and decided to adapt his Nindo to include its teachings. Tenten turned to her father. What martial art? Judo. Another swarm of Kage Bunshin rushed at the Hyuga prodigy. 20 of them this time. Neji saw the one at the far back. The same strategy? What a fool. He rushed his way past the clones and pulled a kunai from one of them before leaping into the air to land right behind Naruto. It's over. The clones disappeared. Neji drove the kunai forward but fell forward when the kunai was suddenly smoke. Two hands grabbed his arm. Sui Neji. Neji was suddenly in the air and then slamming into the ground. A trap. Neji rolled away from his opponent and tried to regroup, but the orange genin was on him straight away. Neji attempted a kick, but it was grabbed and Neji was swung by his own momentum into the air and then into the ground, face first. Held close together by the blonde genin, Neji struggled to break free. As long as we're this close, your all-seeing eye is pointless and you don't have the room to try choking my chakra points. I can just keep throwing you into the ground until... He didn't get to finish as Neji fixed his footing and then brought his stare to Naruto, radiating with Saki. Hakusho. Kaiten. Naruto couldn't hold his grip. It was as though Neji's skin was on fire. Neji span round and the fire began to surround him. Naruto pushed away, throwing stars appearing in his hands and flinging them to cover his retreat. The stars didn't pierce the armor and fell to the ground in a mass of shattered metal. Neji sneered at the 14-year-old genin. Did you think you had one with a couple of judo moves? Hayashi gave a start, just as Hinata was shocked into a hacking cough, and Hanabi leaned forward to watch the fight. They all shared the same thought, Hakusho Kaiten, the heavenly spin. While the Hyuga clan members were shocked, Neji's Kunoichi teammate was all too familiar with his mastery of the clan technique. They had trained together for a long time to perfect it. With the Byakugan's almost 360 degrees of vision, and their natural ability to direct chakra out of every part of their body allowed Neji to use the ultimate protective and defensive jutsu. So there's another who has an absolute defense to rival my own? Mused the red-haired Sunanin. Father, he can use your technique. Hanabi stated as they watched Naruto try to breach Neji's Kaiten only to be flung across the arena. Hayashi nodded. Kaiten is the Hyuga main families. A special technique only passed on to the heirs to the Hyuga house. For Neji to have mastered that technique by himself, without instruction, Hayashi went deep into thought, observing his brother's son. What a talent, to be this good. Naruto ran forward and prepared the hand gestures for Kage Bunshin. Neji began to spin again. A single clone appeared and ran forward. The clone leapt onto the beginning Kaiten, and before he was flung away and destroyed, Naruto leapt onto his back to gain height. He pulled out a scroll and raised a hand. Kai! A mass of weapons of every shape and size appeared and all came crashing onto Neji. His barely formed Kaiten couldn't handle the onslaught and the Hyuga prodigy fell away, rolling away from the blades and hammers. The tide of metal came to an end and Neji looked up to find the blonde genin rushing him with a kunai in one hand and a hammer in another. In his confusion, he could not fully avoid the attack as the blade pierced his arm and the hammer came on his forehead. Only his Hittite protected him from losing consciousness, though it did lead to the metal of the Hittite cutting him. Neji coughed up some blood before he started to sneer again. Not bad, but now you've entered the range of my hack Rokujian show. He adopted a new stance as Naruto prepared for another attack. Hayashi Hyuga stood up in shock. That stance. Naruto's attack didn't land as Neji hit first. 2 strikes. 4 strikes. 8 strikes. 16 strikes. 32 strikes. 64 strikes. The blows were a blur as they landed all over the blonde genin's body. Finally, his boy exploded away from the Hyuga boy. Hinata and Kiba looked horrified. Kotetsu and Izumo started adding up the profit they stood to make on their new medical care program. Hanabi's Byakugan flexed as she focused on the attack's effect. The Sandaime Hokage gripped the arms of his chair, leaving dents in the wood. Tenten and Katanakaji looked at each other worriedly, trying to discern why Naruto had put himself in such a position. Hayashi watched the blonde gasping for breath on the arena ground, then looked to his nephew. What incredible talent, he thought, for the great Hyuga blood to flow so strongly in one who can never claim the title of heir to the clan. Exam Proctor Gunma moved closer to the battle. That should be about it. Neji walked over to Naruto. I have hit the 64 tenketsu of your body. You cannot stand, nor can you channel chakra. He watched while Naruto, still hunched and holding his torso, rolled onto his knees. Stay on your knees before a power you cannot defeat or change and accept your worthlessness. Just as I have. Having your dreams come true through hard work is an illusion. Is it painful? Accepting your role in life. Hinata fell from her seat in a coughing fit. When Kiba knelt down to help her up, he found blood in her palm. And Naruto-kun. She struggled to see across to where Naruto struggled to rise as her vision blackened. Do you really think that I, the last of my clan, would be defeated by the boot boy of the clan that served mine? Naruto looked up as he set one foot down and then the other. He raised himself to full height to face his opponent, who was now backing away in shock. What? Neji tripped on a stone and fell onto his rear. I am possible. What is he saying? How is he standing? I am an Uzumaki, the last of the clan who founded Uzushiogakure. Just as the Uchiha helped the Senju found Konohagakure, so too did the Hyuga help the Uzumaki found Uzushiogakure. Just as the Uchiha were Konoha's military police force, so too were the Hyuga the Uzushiogakure military police force. I am your lord, and if anyone is going to lose this fight, it shall be you. Naruto took a resolute stance as he stared down his enemy. Good, he will get angry now. Now he will begin to tell me why he hates his own clan. Naruto pulled out the Tessen, swing and swoop, and took a beginning position. In seal, Kai. Father, is that all true? What is he? Hanabi couldn't believe what she was seeing. With that command, a second chakra network had appeared. It mapped the entire body just like a normal network. However, there appeared to be more wires that collected around his forehead and his stomach. She tried to look closer at the network. It was an eerie orange-red color. She looked closer but fell back when it seemed to growl at her. What is he? Hayashi felt a cold sweat run down his neck. How had that boy learned about that? That information was only known by the oldest of clans, the Senju. When Uzumaki had fallen, the Hyugas petitioned the Sandaime Hokage for asylum. The In seal, the seal that had been used by the Shodai Hokage and his wife, the Lady Mito Uzumaki, to seal the nine-tailed fox within her. Somehow, that boy has learned of his maternal lineage and found a way to use the demon's chakra. I don't know Hanabi. I don't know. She was injured during the preliminaries. She said she was fine, but Kiba struggled to explain to the ANBU working on the unconscious Hyuga girl. He was panicking, feeling responsible for his teammate's condition. The ANBU gave a reassuring tilt of the head. The Irionine that treated her merely missed a minor injury that hasn't healed properly. Just a simple bit of emergency surgery. I can do it right now, actually, if you prefer. Kiba eyed his mysterious Samaritan. Just who are you? The ANBU turned to his work. No one's suspicious if that's what you're thinking. As your superior, I command you to answer my question. Naruto faced the Hyuga boy as he moved closer, still in an attack position. Why? Why did you mentally attack Hinata like that when she was trying so hard? The Hyuga charged and launched into Tenten. Naruto swung his Tessen and a great gust swamped Neji. His perfect sphere of chakra lost form and he fell sprawling on the ground. Insulting Hinata, automatically deciding she was a loser. I don't care what the hell has happened with your clan, but people who call others losers like that are people I won't forgive. Neji pushed himself off the ground, picking stone out of cuts and grazes. Fine, I'll tell you. You've told me about a Hyuga past I didn't know about, so I'll tell you about their present that you don't know about. I'll tell you about the Hyuga clan's destiny of hatred. Chapter 10. Gemini Shadow. An intruder in the Hyuga estate. As your superior, I command you to answer my question. Naruto faced the Hyuga boy as he moved closer, still in an attack position. Why? Why did you mentally attack Hinata like that when she was trying so hard? The Hyuga charged and launched into Tenten. Naruto swung his Tessen and a great gust swamped Neji. His perfect sphere of chakra lost form and he fell sprawling on the ground. Insulting Hinata, automatically deciding she was a loser. I don't care what the hell has happened with your clan, but people who call others losers like that are people I won't forgive. Neji pushed himself off the ground, picking stone out of cuts and grazes. Fine, I'll tell you. You've told me about a Hyuga past I didn't know about, so I'll tell you about their present that you don't know about. I'll tell you about the Hyuga clan's destiny of hatred. Hayashi's eyes gave the barest flicker of emotion on his normally stern face. Not even his daughter noticed this. Hayashi moved closer to listen, wanting to know what was wrong with his nephew. It was truly as he thought. Kiba didn't notice anything of this as he was too busy watching the ANBU focusing before thrusting his hand upon Hinata's chest. Kiba was at a loss. His teammate had lost consciousness and he was scared. The ANBU looked up. Don't worry, I'm a doctor. The main family of the Hyuga clan has a special ninjutsu that's been passed down for as long as any of us can remember. It's a juinjutsu. A juinjutsu? Questioned Naruto. Neji nodded. That's barbaric. The Uzumaki clan scrolls state that in Uzumaki any and all juinjutsu were labeled kenjutsu. The teaching and use of juinjutsu was punishable with expulsion. Naruto felt rage boil in him. Neji's family used juinjutsu on him? What one? And why? What a village that you speak of. But this is Konohagakure and no such measures exist. The mark of the Hyuga Soke no juinjutsu represents a bird in a cage. It is the symbol of being tied down to an inescapable destiny. The Hyuga genin reached behind his head and undid the knot of his hitayate. He let it drop from his head to reveal a large black mark that covered his entire forehead. It looked like a manji with hooks on either side of it. Naruto looked at the mark with a look of disbelief. That mark is... The Sandaime Hokage watched the fight with a grave expression. I can't believe that a clan in my village conducted themselves like this. How could I have been so blind? All of the main house either wear the hitayate around their neck or a clothing decoration or not at all, while the branch house have worn them on their forehead without fail. It was so obvious, yet Tenten looked to be in great pain as she watched this. The two opponents facing each other were both people she had a bond with, and she didn't know who she should be supporting. They both had a reason to fight that she understood, and she wanted them both to win, and yet... In the past month, she had felt a bond form when she and Naruto had been together. Not the bond that so many of her fellow kunoichi wanted to form with Uchiha Sasuke. No, her bond with Naruto was more like the bond she had with her parents. And yet she also had a bond with her teammate. She finally knew why her teammate had always seemed to carry so much pain in him. Had he told her, she might well have taken the information to her father. She could picture him laying siege to the Hyuga estate and squeezing Hayashi's neck till his head exploded. Probably just as well that didn't happen. Thought she did notice a fire of anger ignite in her father's eyes when Neji revealed the Juinjutsu. Hyuga Hayashi closed his eyes as a wave of shame filled him. Hizashi, I have failed you? And that boy. I recognize you now. Not as Uzumaki though. I recognize that chakra network and those eyes from last week. The little sneak thief. When I was 4, on the day of Lady Hinata's birthday, the Hyuga Soke no Juinjutsu was carved into my forehead. But most have remembered that day as the day a shinobi leader from Kimogakure, a village that Konohagakure had been in conflict with, came to the village. While I screamed in agony, being branded as an inferior specimen of the clan, the village was in celebration over the alliance treaty that was to take place. While everyone celebrated, one clan was absent. The Hyuga clan. From child to genin to chunin to jonin. Even the ANBU. All Hyuga clan members were in the clan estate for Lady Hinata's 3rd birthday. Because that's when we brand the branch members. The Hyuga heir's birthday present is a mass branding of the inferior stock. Neji reactivated his Byakugan. He watched as the orange-red chakra surged and hit against the tenketsu spots he had blocked. It seemed to flow harder at one spot until the damage was undone and moved to the next. So that diamond was a seal. He must have set up that seal with a secondary chakra network specifically for fighting Hyuga. He should be able to just fight with that network, but he wants to talk while he fixes himself. Maybe his chakra control for that network isn't as good. Neji maneuvered himself closer to his opponent. My father was there as well. Hyuga Hizashi. Lady Hinata's father, Hyuga Hayashi, and my father, Hyuga Hizashi, were twin brothers. But Hayashi was the firstborn and became a member of the main family, while my father, the secondborn, became a member of the branch family. Hyuga Neji shook his head in derision. When the Hyuga clan's first daughter became 3, I was made a bird in a cage through their Juinjutsu, as a member of the branch house of the clan. And with this Juinjutsu in place, a member of the main house can. Neji thought back to that time years ago when he saw his uncle put his own brother through so much pain he passed out. With just a flick of a wrist. Never forget your duty. His father's words echo in his mind. But why? This seal can, with a secret hand seal, destroy the wearer's mind. It only disappears when they die, and it seals the ability of the Byakugan with it. There are many who would go to any length to get their hands on the Hyuga Kekkei Genkai. So, with this Juinjutsu, the branch house is allowed to live only to protect the main house. Any form of disobedience is prohibited by the main house. An advanced system, created to eternally protect the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. Neji surged forward and launched his hack, but his arm suddenly jarred. Naruto had folded his Tessen and pincered his arm. Naruto applied more pressure and pulled Neji forward. He then delivered an uppercut to Neji's face. The double chakra network running through the orange genin at the time increased the power of the blow and fired him over 30 feet across the arena. Naruto tucked the Tessen back into the obi sash and walked over to Neji. It couldn't be that simple. A hatred of his clan based on a Juinjutsu? Understandable, but Neji was a genius genin, He could resent his position, but that shouldn't make him so full of hatred that he would nearly kill Hinata in a Chunin preliminary match. That Hinata didn't use the Juinjutsu should have told him something. You're an idiot, Neji-san. Do you hate Hina-chan just because you got branded on her birthday? That she, whose abilities pale in comparison to yours, will get to order you around. Do you not think it's strange that a main house member couldn't just use that cage on you? He knelt down and whispered into Neji's ear as the Hyuga stood up. It's not that she wouldn't, she can't. The Hyuga elders are planning to have her demoted to the branch house. Now that they have Hanabi, a prodigy like you, they don't need a bumbling idiot like Hinata. Neji looked at the blonde in shock and pushed away. How? How would you know about something like that? Naruto smirked and flicked his arms. Twin tornadoes appeared and Neji rolled away. He turned and Naruto was stood directly in front of him. I'm the Gemini shadow you Hyuga have been talking about. The two chakra networks flexed as one and like a cannon. Naruto's fist drove into Neji's gut. In the week leading up to the Chunin exams finals, a strange phenomenon had been observed by many Hyuga on the Hyuga estate. A small shinobi completely covered in black had been seen on the grounds, specifically the Hyuga library. When they had tried to see his chakra to figure out who it was, they had been baffled by the fact the individual had two chakra networks circulating his body. And he was stronger, faster than an ordinary shinobi of his size. They hadn't brought it to the Hokage because they feared the double chakra network may have represented a flaw, a weakness developing in the all-seeing eye of the Hyuga. Neji coughed and wheezed as he pushed his aching body. His opponent was not what he had expected. The dead last loser that had vowed to beat him was now some sort of urban legend on the Hyuga estate, capable of eluding shinobi whose job is to see through shadows. And then came the day that tainted my life and showed me the terrible thing that is destiny. The day my father was killed by the main house. Naruto gasped. Yes, one night years ago. Lady Hinata was taken by an intruder. Lord Hayashi took care of it. The intruder was all in black and his face was covered. Can you guess who it was? Naruto shook his head and Hayashi's face became even sterner. It was the Kumogakure shinobi leader who had just signed the peace treaty. Obviously, the whole reason for the treaty was so that they could get close enough to steal a Hyuga with the Byakugan. But Kumogakure, with one of their leaders dead, on Konohagakure soil, by Konohagakure hands, saw an opportunity. They threatened Konoha with war till they made a single demand. One thing and there would be no war. They wanted the body of a Hyuga ninja with the Byakugan. They wanted the corpse of Lord Hayashi. And Konohagakure agreed. Hanabi turned round and saw her father sink back into his seat with a weary expression. But father is alive and here. What happened then? The Sandaime Hokage sighed and fell back into his chair. The Hyuga clan are playing host to a great deal of drama right now, and I always thought they were a bunch of stiff shirts. He turned to the Kazekage and fixed him with a glare. Normally I'd have to repeatedly tell him that I did not share his taste for testing the next generation with surprise assassination attempts. He's been almost completely silent. Could it be that he is? War was averted by killing my father and sending him in place of a main house member. Neji began to laugh. Heh! To escape this horrid fate in this damnable cage, the only escape is death. They were twins, identical. Their strength virtually the same. Born first, born second. Their destinies were decided by just that. Do you understand, Naruto? Your fate was decided the moment I became your opponent. No Fuinjutsu from your forgotten clan or Iryo ninjutsu from the medical center can change your fate. Naruto raised his fist and in a twirl Senbon appeared. Now I know the cause of your darkness. I can now treat it. Hyuga Neji, prepare yourself for a lesson in Naruto-style Iryo Nindo. Chapter 11. Iryo Nindo, the path of a healer. First, put your Hitai-8 back on. Naruto pointed at it on the ground. Neji looked at his opponent confusedly. He saw the orange chakra fade and the diamond reappear on Naruto's forehead as the blonde genin walked over and picked up the black headband. What are you talking about? Neji asked Naruto as the blonde genin stood before him, holding the Hitai-8 out to him. I tell you are destined to be defeated by me, and you are concerned about wearing a headband? He pushed it back. Naruto pushed it back and onto Neji's chest. By wearing these, we recognize each other as fellow shinobi. As rivals in this exam striving to prove our worth in front of our allies, our comrades and people we don't know, people who couldn't give a rat's ass about whether we live or die. Sometimes, the only person that might care is an enemy. Neji swung his arms out and launched into his Kaiten. Naruto leapt into the air, riding the chakra and still holding the Hittite. In his other hand, he pulled out the Tessen called Swoop and concentrated on the Kaiten. In a swing, he dipped Swoop into the Kaiten and pulled the Kaiten apart like a ball of yarn. Neji faltered and tried to move away but stopped when he saw that Naruto was still too far away to hit him with the Tessen. Naruto swung out and to Neji's amazement, the Hyuga genius felt his chest tear open. A long, cruel gash appeared out of nowhere going from the left of his waist to his right shoulder. The Suna team leader Baki choked on his dango. Kaze no Yaiba, or, rather a derivative of it. Like Temari's Kamaitashi no Jutsu, the orange genin had channeled it through his Tessen. However, the boy hadn't flung the attack, nor was it a flurry of kunai made of wind, as Temari would have described it. No, it was like his technique, a single sharp cut that bypasses virtually any defense. The boy must have concentrated his wind chakra into the fan and used it as an invisible extension, increasing the range and lethality of what would have been a simple melee attack. This boy, channeling chakra into attacks without hand signs, nintaijutsu and ninkenjutsu. Such a fighting style would complement an Irionin well, Baki thought. I can't imagine how it must have hurt to have lost your father at that age, but to think that destiny is all decided because of that is a huge mistake. Naruto charged close and locked one of Neji's arms in a hold while he swung a leg out to knock the Hyuga off balance. As Neji slipped, Naruto lifted and brought his opponent down to the ground with a slam. Not giving Neji a chance to recover, he put the Hyuga prodigy into a submission hold. Neji struggled and winced, preparing to feel the dirt and stone rub into his wound. But it didn't come. While still struggling, he was able to see his cut close up and form a long scar. Finally, the hold relents and he rolls out of it, but not far as his Hittite appears in front of him. Put it on. Neji stares at his opponent. Shosenjutsu? He healed my cut, but why? Why have you healed me? Why do you use a civilian martial art? What were you talking about earlier when you said, sometimes the only person that might care is an enemy? Why? Naruto stood up and watched as Neji picked up the Hittite and stand. Juyoku go o Saisu. Gentleness controls hardness. I follow the principles of judo. I couldn't get you to listen to me by shouting at you, so I used Shosenjutsu to make you take pause. Kano Jigoro originally created a bujitsu, but he eventually realized that the principles he created with it, Juyoku go o Saisu and Suryoku Zenyo, maximum efficiency, minimum effort, could be combined with Jita Kaioi, mutual welfare and benefit, to form a budo. The concept of judo is this. In short, resisting a more powerful opponent will result in your defeat, whilst adjusting to and evading your opponent's attack will cause him to lose his balance, his power will be reduced, and you will defeat him. This can apply whatever the relative values of power, thus making it possible for weaker opponents to beat significantly stronger ones. This is the theory of Juyoku go o Saisu, a civilian version of your clan fighting style that you have been floored by. The reason I learned it was to understand your clan. However, the only one who seems to have taken the philosophy of your Juken seriously is Hinachan. I told you about respect for an enemy because look around. Neji scanned his surroundings. Can you name any of those civilians? Did you ever play with civilian kids? No? Do you know why? Because they fear us. We are trained, almost from birth, to fight and kill in the defense of our village and for pay. We can do things that no ordinary civilian is capable of. They don't understand us and so they avoid us. They don't respect us. I wear my Hittite and my opponent knows I am a shinobi of Konohagakure. If I die, they can say, I killed Uzumaki Naruto of Konohagakure. Not some shinobi. Neji placed his thumbs on his jacket and after a moment of concentration, 2 holes appeared. He looped the holes with his Hittite and fastened it back up with it. You're hopeless. In a flash, he charged into Naruto. Before Naruto could react, Neji had channeled as much chakra he could into his fist and drove it straight into the orange genin's chest. The chakra released and flooded Naruto's body. Blood erupted from his mouth and drenched the Hyuga prodigy's face. Immediately, the Hyuga clan's genius genin launched what appeared to be Hack Rokuji on show, followed by a chakra-enhanced kick. Naruto flew across the arena and as he did his body exploded with blood. Cuts appeared all over his body. Neji began to laugh maniacally as the blonde genin landed with a wet thud. What did you think of that? I saw that second circuit and realized what you were doing. To make sure that doesn't work this time I gave you my special attack, that I reserve only for the most undeserving of ninja. Rokujushi Setsuden hack, 8 trigrams 64 amputations. Not only did I hit your tenketsu, I severed them. With that he turned to Genma, who looked visibly shaken. Proctor, it's over. Hayashi turned to see his daughter on her knees throwing up. Hanabi! He moved to her side and within seconds was holding her as she dry heaved. What is it, Hanabi? Hanabi began to sob uncontrollably. Did you not see it, father? When those blows hit I could see the chakra lines. It was like they were bleeding. And now, it's like he's invisible unless I turn off the Byakugan. Father, I'm scared. She pushed herself further into her father's embrace while he rubbed her back and stroked her hair in a vain attempt to comfort her. Hayashi looked at the scene and felt bile rise in his throat too. Such a brutal assault. Even more so than his attack on Hinata from the reports. He thought to himself, what is he thinking? Executing a fellow Konoha genin like this? Hayashi felt shame overcome his disgust. Hizashi, your son. Hijitsu, Mashidama. The monotone voice called out. Instantly, a swarm of Kikaichu started to swarm Nara Shikamaru as he tried to run out onto the arena. It didn't cover him entirely, but the bugs had managed to secure the young Nara's hands and feet as Aburame Shino slowly walked over and pulled him back to his seat. When Shino felt Shikamaru had calmed down, he recalled the Kikaichi back into himself. You cannot interfere. It is against the rules to enter another shinobi or kunoichi's match. Why are you acting like this? I'm listening. Shikamaru rubbed his wrists and turned to the bug using genin. I've just seen a friend, a comrade in arms on pranking missions and recently a role model for self-improvement, get cut open by a guy who beat his own cousin half to death. I can't just sit here and do nothing. Shikamaru huffed and stood up, finding himself uncomfortable while sitting next to a guy with bugs living inside him. I can sympathize with your feelings of loss. As you said, Uzumaki's opponent beat Hyuga Hinata half to death. At this, Shikamaru noticed Shino's sunglasses slip to reveal eyes quivering in anger. The bug-using genin quickly pushed them back. While I never took part in pranking, Hyuga was my teammate, and so I feel the loss you feel in the sense of losing a comrade in arms. But the rules are very clear, and no matter how you or I feel, we cannot hope to continue in the exam or claim the title of Chunin if we do not obey the rules of the Chunin exam finals. You will have to wait until you have defeated the Sunakunoichi and myself before you can get your revenge. Shikamaru sighed. If the Aburame was willing to break his pattern of monosyllabic sentences, then he could bide his time. Naruto woke to the sound of a flute playing. It was a strangely relaxing tune that made his aches and pains fade. He eventually noticed he was in a pool of water. He sat upright and looked around. It was that power plant in him that the fox was sealed in. The sound was coming from... The music stopped. You're awake then? Good. I would hate to think you'd get to just die unconscious while I have to watch it all come down. What in the world were you thinking? I was trying to... Wait. Die? I'm dying? And when did you start playing the flute? I have been playing since before you were born, and yes, we're dying. That Hyuga boy you were trying to save punched a shitload of chakra into your heart and caused heart failure. He then sliced you open at your tenketsu points, so if it isn't blood loss, then it's chakra shutdown on account of irrevocable damage to your chakra network. Even if you were able to release the Een seal, your second network wouldn't get past the damage and you'd fry your brain with all the chakra we've stored. Lastly, he put another shitload of chakra into a finisher. A kick to the gut. Right into the seal. My seal is now totally warped that I couldn't escape even if I possessed you and got you to pull off the seal paper on this cage. Would it help? The fox turned to the genin. Would you be more comfortable if I removed that seal paper? The fox was flabbergasted. Boy, I just told you we're dying and you want to make me comfortable? Well, yeah. You played the flute for me till I woke up, and if there's no way for us to survive this, I can at least make you comfortable. All this was said with a sincere smile that the fox hadn't seen in a long time. How long do you think we have? The fox rose up. Kurama. Naruto ran over to the cage and climbed up the bars to look the fox in the eyes. What was that? It's like you said, Naruto. Everyone should have a name. How can we acknowledge each other if we don't know each other's names? I can't very well say thank you Fox or thank you Ninetales, you know. The demon fox, known to many as QB, wasn't sure he could control himself at this point. He began to growl. You seem to be angry a lot, you know? Maybe if we could be friends, you wouldn't have to be so angry all the time, you know. The fox collected himself and tried to sound as tough as possible. How about this, brat? I'll send chakra to your new seal and you can do whatever you like with it. If I am impressed, then I will give you my name. Naruto grinned. Deal. And so your name is… Yes, now say it. Kurama. At that, the whole room shook and shivered. Naruto reached out and ripped the seal paper away and the whole room fell away and became a formless white. Wow, what the… Where are we? I gave you my name, Naruto. We are now joined. The white room changed again and suddenly they were in Konoha. At the Hokage mountain. The fox explained. We're currently in your mind space while I move us to the Ein seal. I'm afraid that seal on your belly will be visible at all time now. It's utterly warped and I doubt even a master Uzumaki could fix it. Naruto, what is that? Kurama signaled to the addition to the Hokage mountain in Naruto's mind space. Beside the other Hokages were two heads, close together and looking regal. The face on the left was obviously Naruto. The hair was slightly longer, but the face was smiling the same grin it always had when Naruto was truly happy. The other face was… Well, when I become Hokage, it's not like I'm going to lie about who I am, and since we're a team, I thought the Jinchukuri Hokage of Konoha should have his partner up there with him, you know, Kurama? The nine-tailed demon fox, Kyuubi. With a sweep of one of his tails, he could cause tsunamis to crash and storms to rage. He was the embodiment of natural disasters. Kurama had only cried twice in the thousands of years he had lived. The day his father died. And now… So are we dead? Naruto dug into a tub of ramen that had appeared in front of him and turned to Kurama, who had dug into a ramen box the size of Ichiraka ramen. They looked out as the sun set on the Konoha in Naruto's mind. No, right now we're in an infinite second. While we have been fixing our inner workings, virtually no time has passed outside. You're still on the floor bleeding and suffering heart failure. Kurama set down his chopsticks and rolled onto his back, scrabbling to get an itch that had been bothering him. But we've sorted out your seal, cannibalized the remains to strengthen the Ein seal and bonded. What do you think the odds are I'd still be able to fight? Kurama rolled back onto his belly. Slim, if you wake up and then try to release the Ein seal, your wrists are in no condition to move. You'll have to use our bonded chakra to get it going and activate the Ein seal after to take care of the rest. You just have to call my name. Alright, let's finish this. And Kurama? Yes, Naruto? Can you teach me to play the flute? Shiranui Genma moved over to the bleeding husk of the boy that he had seen working in the medical center only days ago. He had been a total pro and Shiranui had believed the boy would help put Konoha on the map for its medical capabilities, just like back in the day when Tsunade lived in Konoha. He turned to the audience and saw Izumo and Kotetsu loudly arguing about how Naruto had cheated them out of their winnings. Katanakaji felt a rage that threatened to overwhelm him. Before, when a teammate had died in his arms, he had felt despair. Today, he did not feel despair at the sight of the boy. He wanted to help dead on the ground. Today, he wanted to tear the Hyuga estate apart. He wanted to put Hyuga Neji's head on a pike, then tear the Council of Elders apart, limb by limb. His daughter Tenten felt much the same way. She knew the second Neji had stood up that Naruto had healed Neji. This Iryo-Nindo philosophy Naruto had mentioned seemed to mean Naruto wanted to reach Neji before beating him. Neji had replied to this kindness by killing him. She didn't think she could be around her teammate anymore. She decided she would ask for a transfer after the exams. Then again, maybe she could just retire from the ninja life. Naruto, I'm sorry I asked you to help my damn team. I'm so sorry. Genma knelt down beside the blood-soaked genin. The beige Iryonin coat was no longer beige, and he doubted there was enough cleaner in the village that would get all of the blood out. Sorry, kid. He raised his arm up and shouted. Winner of the first round. Any dash, he was cut off by a hand grabbing his arm. Kurama! Genma was swamped in chakra and leapt away before he was carried away. Naruto stood up and Gunma saw his and slitted like an animal. Like a fox. Een seal. Kai! The diamond on his forehead disappeared again and orange-red lines spun and intertwined across his face and down his neck. The jacket, the haori, the kimono, all thrown off and making a soggy pile. The orange-red lines flowed across the bare skin and Genma saw a black spiral on the boy's stomach before he turned and backed as far away as possible. This match was far from over and he did not want to get hit by anything this immortal was throwing. Fuin Jutsu. Moko. Kai. The ground erupted.